Well, obviously, Bill is probably, fair to say that he's the leading authority on the world right now on Corso in the context of his work with the government, the book, his legacy, and everything else. I'm not trying to cite his family in any way, but it's a mixed Corso that may be there. So his potential impact on the field is still not trivial. It could still make a major dent in this whole thing at any time. I was hoping that he would update us kind of on what Philip Corso legacy might be in '99, some new developments there, and Peter, of course, is also familiar with this, may have a question or two.
Well, the interesting thing about Phil Corso is that there was so much more. Very few people know this, but there was so much more to the whole Phil Corso file, all of his material, than ever got between the covers of the first book, mainly because of the considerations aside. Phil left hundreds of reports, handwritten reports that he copied down before he left the Army, and that were in his file. And of course, there were the whole General Trudeau memoirs, and I mentioned this to a lot of people. I talked to Stan Friedman about this earlier this year. These of the Trudeau memoirs are very compelling. In 1997, Phil handed me his copy and said, basically, Bill, you know what to do with this. And we'll talk about these later. And of course, Phil died the following year. But in those memoirs, there's a very compelling chapter on General Trudeau's years in Army R&D, what he wanted to do, why he wanted to do it, and a very intriguing description. Obviously, when I said, like I said, there's no UFO mention in there. These are public documents written for the Army by General Trudeau about his career. Army R&D only occupies one chapter. But for a lot of people who look at what kind of conspiracies are going on with MK Ultra and Army drug testing and LSD and hallucinogenics, in one of the most stunning revelations of those memoirs, I do have them, I read them, Trudeau, in the most blasé fashion, I mean, this would blow anybody's mind who reads this, and you will get a chance to read UFO magazine. In this very blasé language, Trudeau talks about the Army testing of LSD on not just enlisted personnel, that's horrifying enough when you realize the implications of that, but on members of the Army General Staff to test the way non-lethal weapons might work. And Trudeau describes the meeting in which a general walks into some meeting completely disoriented, unable to focus, in some kind of hallucinogenic state, and there's no command and control. And Trudeau says, yes, we did that. It was effective. I don't know how we did it. I don't know how we slipped LSD to the other side. And it was just very funny seeing this general literally from World War II and the Korean War describing this. Then, of course, he goes on to explain what he did with Colonel Corso, and he refers to it in this very intriguing way. And this is all part of that Corso file, is that he says, we had this problem with technology that wasn't invented here. And he had a problem getting the Congress to fund that technology. They wanted it to be American technology. They were investing American dollars, American taxpayer dollars. This goes back to before Corso's arrival in the Pentagon in 51. This must go back to 58 and 59 as well. If they're going to invest American dollars in technology for the Army, darn it, they wanted it to be American technology.
Gee, what a refreshing attitude. Usually now we develop things and hand them to the Chinese.
Well, that's what we did with, that's what we were supposed to, that was what was going to happen with Star Wars, remember? We were going to hand it over to the Russians. But Trudeau said his problem was that he had a bunch of stuff that wasn't developed here. So he came up with a plan, he said, to take what he called, and I love his code art, it's NIH. NIH means not invented here. And his code is we're going to take all the NIHs and we're going to take them to American industry and we're going to give them the patent and let them develop it. And then it's free American, that's Americanized media, and that's the political ease describing what Corso's role was at the Pentagon.
Peter, Bill just made an incredible allegation, that is, of the general staff being fed LSD, not just line troops. Is there any way to recover information on that through FOIA lawsuits?
Well, if it isn't classified, probably, and it exists, and it isn't, then you know what to ask for, I guess, specifically what to ask for, and what agency to request it from. If you meet all those conditions, then I'm sure you can get the document.
Bill, can you supply those?
I certainly can. It's in black and white in
Really?
the memoir.
Are you going to print? You are going to print it soon in Struggle magazine?
Yeah, we're going to print it. Parts of this we're going to print through the office of the magazine. So you'll see some material in the magazine. We're looking for a way. We don't have a way yet, but we're looking for a way to do another edition called Day After Roswell 2 with the raw material that didn't get into the book printed as raw material in Day After Roswell 2, the Corso file. This is what we want to do, and we're looking for a way to do it. In some cases where we have Bill Corso's own handwritten documents, we want to do these on facing pages so you can read in typescript in regular book format what Bill wrote with his report, and on the facing page is a photograph of the actual document. So we're trying to find a way to do that.
All I can say is I probably have more air hours with Philip Corso before he passed away than anybody in any broadcast medium, and I found him to be, to a fault, believable, honest, and just totally legit.
He was, and the man was a walking encyclopedia. Did that strike you as something really, for all the people who said how frail he looked and were criticizing his age, the man actually was a walking encyclopedia.
Well, if I can jump in, his legacy isn't over. We're still in court. The lawsuits by Coors against the Department of Army, based on what Colonel Corso stated in his book and later swore to in an affidavit that was submitted to the U.S. Attorney's Office pursuant to a reply to a motion for summary judgment. That case is still pending, and sometime in May of this year, I am going to be in court arguing the merits of his affidavit and that the Army did not conduct a reasonable search pursuant to the Freedom of Information Act based on the fact that Corso submitted an affidavit saying that he saw this.
If you were to win that, what would it mean?
Well, then we can go into the discovery procedure. Then we can, subpoena witnesses from the Army. We can get together with Bill and see if Colonel Corso mentioned anybody else that he worked with. We maybe be able to take their depositions.
Sounds like Bill may have valuable information for you, Peter.
Yeah, assuming that we can get past this oral argument on a motion for summary judgment. But next week, Coors is going back into the same courthouse in Phoenix, in the federal court, and we're not going to bring an action against the Department of Defense for information about what those triangular V-shaped, delta-shaped craft are that have been flying in our sky, and maybe even, as we speak, they're flying around. You saw one of us.
I did.
Well, it's about time we found out what these objects are. And possibly next month, as early as next month, Coors is going to go back into the same court against the CIA, the FBI, the Department of Defense again for information on what these alien abductions are all about. I think it's about time that we took a look at what people are telling us are happening to them and what they've been telling us for the last 30 years.
All right, for any of you, I want to ask this. All of you are bumping heads with some pretty big, dangerous agencies, if what we believe is true. Peter, how much danger is there for people in our field?
I don't think there's any danger personally. I think if they come forward with the information they have, then there's no danger. The more that the public knows about it, the less likely it will be that anybody's going to be injured. By keeping the secret, then the government can take whatever action they want and eliminate the person. I don't have any secrets. Richard doesn't have any secrets.
However, you heard the letter that I read, and I know, or I think that I know, that you know who wrote that letter, that I read in part, the warning letter the other night. I've got a copy of it up on my website, or at least that much as I read. That person feels great mortal danger.
Well, yeah,
my position is in any of these statements or incidents, whether it's photographs, whether it's witness testimony, until I have the opportunity to examine the person, see the circumstances. Basically, you know what my first reaction is when you read the letter and I listened to it?
What?
I said, it's hearsay. Why are you reading the letter? Why don't you put the individual on, disguise his voice with some kind of voice modification, and let him say what it is that was in the letter. Let him tell your audience what it is. Why read the letter?
Answer is because, number one, he firmly said later in the letter, that was it. He's done. He doesn't want to die. Whatever time he's got left, he wants to spend it quietly with his family. I respect that. I could have brought him on that way or probably tried to talk him into it, but believe me, he would have been recognized. And so if his fear is real...
Well, he's been identified already. So,
well, I don't want it to be Oliver, and I don't want him named.
No, I'm not going to name him. I'm just saying he was mentioned on the internet. And the point is, the people that he refers to in that letter,
yes.
You know who it is. In other words, if he gives them as much credit as he is, then they definitely know who it is.
So you think by being low profile, there's greater danger than if you were to just come on?
I think so.
I have to agree with Peter on that, because there was a lot of discussion about that with Phil Corso. Why didn't he feel somehow endangered by going forward with basically was
That's right.
a plan that when you read the Trudeau memoirs, he basically confirms what Corso said. So, I mean, it's the truth. Why didn't he feel in any way endangered by that? And he said the exact same thing that Peter Gersten just said, that it's being silent that puts you in greater danger because nobody knows the story. The more this stuff is out there, the more people are not going to do anything about it. There are instances where people have come forward whose lives have been basically trashed by the government. We're talking to one person trying to get his story in the magazine. He was an analyst, an intelligence data analyst on the NSA intercept planes that were flying over Vietnam back in the 60s. And he describes an incident where, first of all, he said that these intercept planes, which could monitor if somebody burped in Hanoi, they picked it up on that plane. And he was saying that the number 2 priority was the launch of a Soviet ICBM. That was it. Immediately everything shuts down, and that was the priority line. But that was number 2. So the obvious question we asked this man is, well, what was number 1? He said a UFO intrusion. And I said, well, was it ever a UFO intrusion? Obviously, the next question. He said, absolutely. That there were unidentified objects that would shadow these NSA intercepts, and he basically was in a position to monitor Chinese anti-missile sites in the northern part of North Vietnam, targeting these things and thinking somehow the Americans were responsible for these unidentified objects. And the Americans and the Russian SAM batteries and the Vietnamese SAM batteries somehow would have their launch codes, and they would actually communicate the fact that, no, this was not an American craft, it was something else. And they basically all stood down knowing it was a UFO, but they could do nothing about it. And we're trying to get him to go public in the magazine. And I'm telling you, it's a very tough thing to do.
All right, I agree with you. Absolutely agree. Peter, it has been, as always, a pleasure having you on, and I have a feeling you'll be a frequent guest.
Thank you, Art.
Again, folks, go to my website. Just scroll down to the name Peter Gersten. Go over and, by all means, join up and get the cause list. It's free. It comes to your email every day, and you will be up on the latest of what's occurring. Peter, thank you.
Thank you.
And anything else?
That's it.
That's it.
Watch the skies.
Keep your eyes on the skies. All right. That's Peter Gersten. When we come back, we will be joined by James Berjevic. Boy, I hope I've got that right. I'm Art Bell, and this is Disclosure 99 on Coast to Coast AM. Top of the morning, everybody. We'll be joined in a moment by James Berjevic. And we've got a number of questions about him. And before him, he joins Bill Burns, and he joins, of course, Stephen Bassett, as we continue with what we call Disclosure 99, trying to catch you up on what's happened and what's coming in the current year in the UFO community. I'm Mark Bell. All right, James Urjavic now. James is an environmental geologist, a specialist in mapping and computer graphics, a member of the SPSR group, the Society for Planetary Setting Research. He contributed papers to The Case for the Face on the structures being studied in the Cydonia region of Mars. He now joins William Burns, Bill Burns, and Stephen Bassett. Gentlemen, welcome back.
Good morning, Art. Steve, Bill.
Yes, welcome.
Can I launch this one?
You sure can.
What's neat about this segment is that there are two major sub-stories that are going on in terms of news, in terms of coverage, in terms of trying to get NBC, ABC, and all of these wonderful journalists involved. And right now we have two perfect representatives for both stories. One is the witness issue. Bill is involved with a lot of people, one of the most famous, who are, of course, at the top of the food chain of the congressional witnesses, who are government employees, testify in front of Congress, tell what they know. The other story is the situation with respect to evidence being brought back to the space program that may possibly implicate artificial structures and extraterrestrial intelligence. These are the two principal stories. Each of these men are right in the middle of both of them. Either one of these stories, if they move along the tracks that they seem to be going, could virtually blow the cover above, and we would move to another era. So it's neat to have them together. Jim, have you guys had a chance to listen to the program so far?
Yeah, pretty much just most of it.
Yeah, how do you feel? What do you think is going to be the future of the Mars Global Surveyor and the photos and the artificial structures over the next 6 months? Are we about to see some developments there? Is that going to be a factor this year?
I don't know. It's difficult to say because NASA holds the strings on the puppet, and NASA only lets out things that they want to let out.
James,
it took a bit for us to get the images of Cydonia. I know Richard Hogan worked a lot on it, getting people sending in. Our group, SPSR, we're pressing NASA on it. They got the images, and then we get 3 of them, and then they're off to the main mission. So I think it will kind of be serendipitous as to what we get next in the Cydonia region from the Global Surveyor. And so it's really difficult to say as to, how much more we're going to go.
Okay, James, this is Art Bell. Let me ask you this. With respect to the photographs we did get, the first one was terribly disappointing. Bad quality. I called it, to me it looked like a cat box more than a face, just lumps and bumps.
Right.
And that was the one widely, sent around the world. And unfortunately, the one that was commented upon and kind of was case closed, it's not a face. But later enhancements began to change that story. The general public never got it. Is that your position?
Yeah, that is our position. My position, as well as the group's position, that we really got burned on that first image, and it's a difficult. As a geologist, I'm able to look at. I looked at the thing and initially was very disappointed. I felt like, God, what is this? And then I went back and started to look at it again and rotated the image and changed colors and this and that. And I started to see things that most folks aren't going to see just because I'm trained to see those kind of things. And I realized that, hey, there's a lot more relief to this thing. There's structure in this thing. It's, there's much more to it than we initially get. But unfortunately, we get that same image, it's in the paper, the pile of rocks, nothing, on we go. And, quotes by Ali, for example, well, it's like any mesa you see out west. Well, he's wrong. It's not like any mesa you see out west. I've never seen a mesa like that out west. I've seen all kinds of mesas, from aerial photos and on the ground, and it is not like anything you see like that. But unfortunately, that thing sticks in the media's mind, it sticks in the people's mind, and so it's very difficult then to turn that back, because they want a quick answer, and unfortunately, we're not going to get a quick answer. At least, using scientific methods, we shouldn't get a quick answer on that.
What is it might be noted here that there are structures under the water near the island of Okinawa, and we have have sent divers down, and we still are arguing about what they are, and they're here on Earth where we can look at them, much less on Mars.
Yes, I've heard of those.
What is the SPSR group, Society for Planetary SETI Research? What is it, James?
What is it? It's a group of scientists. Most of us communicate mainly by email, and we started with just a few of us back in 93, 94, and the group has grown over time. I mean, we've got specialists in astronomy and engineering and religion, architects. I mean, it's a whole interdisciplinary group. I mean, that really is a great resource for studying, something like possible artificial structures on Mars. And, it's just kind of moved with time, and we've added more people. We've added some more recently who are interested in the area, and it's just something that continues to grow right now. But again, it's difficult. Most of these people have other jobs. They don't necessarily, do this as a full-time thing. I myself do not. So it's kind of slow work because of that. But I think we've made a lot of progress in getting the book face-to-face, out to the public, and the recorded of the images. I think that was a big plus.
Is that the case, James, that this group is virtually entirely made up of mainstream scientists, engineers, and professionals?
Correct, it is. Many are, from institutions, universities and that, working with industry and with the government. Yeah, it is very mainstream.
And some of them have worked for NASA in the past, correct?
That is correct.
Did I understand you correctly when you earlier said that the current consensus of this fairly large group of individuals is that the structures in the Sidonia region of Mars are in fact artificial?
Not that is the consensus, but that it certainly has not been proven the other way. And we're continuing. There are some, there's always disagreement with interest. There are some members of the group who feel very strongly that they are artificial. It's undeniable. There's other members of the group who are on the line saying, I don't know, it really looks like it, but where's that next piece of evidence? And there are a few who, really were disappointed by the images and don't feel that we really have, something there. So it is a broad mix, but the platform of the group in general, I'm just speaking for myself, is that, we still have some work to do on this. I mean, not only the Sidonia, the image of the face, but it turns out with the NGS images we did get, we found quite a few other anomalous features that, frankly, at least from the geologic aspect, can't be explained by NASA, scientists, and they either ignored them or brushed over them, and there's a lot more work to be done.
This brings up an interesting thing you have in common with Will Burns, and that is this, that here is a group of scientists that have moved a very strong opinion. We have artificial structures on Mars. It's an unbelievable thing. The press, and believe me, the press has been approached on this by me and others, but certainly by me. I don't want to make lists of this stuff. They are extremely reluctant to directly address this additional information. And Bill Burns knows exactly what I'm talking about, because Phil Corso dropped one of the biggest bombshells ever into this mix with a book the day after Roswell. And the press in Washington did such a remarkable job of completely staying away from Phil Corso that when he died, a man with 20 decorations and served on, senators' staff and MacArthur's staff, and testified on a Hill countless times, the Washington Post, and I've done a thorough search, did not even run an obituary. Bill, you see what I'm saying?
Well, I'll tell you, this image is more astounding than this reason. When Bill was testifying before Robert Dornan's House Committee on POWs that were not returned from the Korean War, Time and Newsweek magazine did profiles of the man. When this whole flap happened with Senator Strom Thurmond, and he was a guy who was born 34 years after the impeachment of Andrew Johnson, swearing in Chief Justice Rehnquist at the impeachment hearing. I mean, talk about history. When this man claimed he didn't understand what book he was writing forward to, that got the day after Roswell on page 1 of the New York Times. And we hit page 1 twice. Page 1 because Strom Thurmond denied that he knew what he was writing about when he wrote the forward to the book. So this is fascinating stuff. That's how you get into the news media. But I can tell you this from personal experience. the news media shy away, especially the television news media, shy away from anything that can compromise the corporations that own TV news. I mean, when you realize that CBS is owned by Westinghouse, a defense contractor, NBC is owned by General Electric, a defense contractor, ABC is owned by the Disney company, who really deals with a lot of the regulatory positions in Washington and its international corporation and has deals with China and other countries. It is no wonder that these reporters and reporters from newspapers are going to rely on access journalism. That is to say, if they report the wrong news, they get denied access by the very organizations that can help put them, give them a good byline. So they're going to play ball. That's why these stories don't appear.
You've just given ourselves an incredibly good reason to get to the Paradigm Clock website and start signing up for that congressional hearing petition. Get their name on record. James, there was a lot of tension and a lot of tough times there between the SBSR group and NASA, APL laboratories. A lot of odd behavior, difficult communications. Where are things now? Obviously, they're kind of off the hook for a while. Is there still some tension between y'all and NASA, JPL? Are they communicating with you? What's happening?
There's not very much communication between them and us. For the most part, we had to go and we had to basically grab onto them with hooks and then pull the information from them. They don't really give us anything that would assist us with what we want. I mean, it really came to forcing the issue of getting these images. The way it is, I believe anyway, is that NASA has its own plan, and NASA does what it wants. And NASA, is looking for, and this kind of relates to the newspaper article, what is NASA looking for in the way of light in the solar system? They're looking for microbes, they're looking for algae, they're looking for lichen. They don't even consider that there's anything more. They wouldn't consider that perhaps there's, quote, some kind of reptile, possible, or, any higher life at all. And the other aspect of what NASA is looking at is the SETI program, which is the radio waves being sent to, distant stars. Well, a lot of good that's going to do if we, reach a society that's at the same level of technology that we are, and well, they're going to bounce some signals back to us. I don't quite understand, what they have against the possibility of intelligent life, advanced.
I'll tell you what it is, Jim. NASA is also a political organization. For everything else it is, it's political. The stories you hear about the political decisions made inside NASA to do what NASA does are really astounding. I remember one of the engineering people was talking about why Challenger 7 was launched when NASA knew darn well that the chances of an accident were very high. And basically, one of the reasons was that somebody walked into somebody else and said, I don't give a damn, this thing has to go up. We have a teacher up there, we have students watching this thing, school children watching this thing. I don't care about the weather. The weather was okay. And look what happened to it. So NASA responds to a great deal of political pressure inside Washington. And the one thing NASA is not going to do is blow a secret by saying, we are really searching for intelligent life in the universe. Because quite frankly, nobody wants to know we're searching for intelligent life. It's frightening.
Yeah, I agree.
Interesting. Marilyn, I've had information from my sources that obviously NASA is a DoD product, and it has to adhere to certain demands from there. And one of those demands is you're not going to rock the boat on this issue. But there is a huge built-in paradox here, and that is simply this. Common sense tells you that if artificial structures in Sedonia confirm, the American public will write NASA a blank check, literally. Spend whatever you need, do whatever you want. The agency will ascend into heaven.
Yeah, and I think it's part of we've helped them. All of us who have looked at Sidonia have helped NASA out. I think there's no question about that.
But still, it doesn't explain the paradox. This enormous reluctance when, in fact, the agency would be showered with money. What is the source of this ambivalence and reluctance?
Well, I'll tell you probably what it is. General Trudeau mentioned this in his memo. Because remember, General Trudeau had this incredible plan for Project Horizon to get an armed base, not a Navy, not an Air Force base, but an Army base, a whole new command on the moon. And it was a military base. And if you read the day after Roswell in the appendix, you'll see parts of this are actually printed in the appendix. One of the astounding things in Trudeau's memoir is his fury, his absolute fury that his plan was curtailed, was short-circuited by NASA, and the Army and the Pentagon made a dedicated effort to get back from the space program via NASA what it felt it gave up in the way of military missions to the moon and around the planet. And so there was been a concerted effort through the years to devote more and more of the Pentagon's black budget to NASA, in return for which NASA would run the kind of missions the military wants. And that's why nobody wants to rock the boat. They're getting too much money. Follow the money, and you'll see what NASA is doing.
James, if major media were to turn up at FCSR's door, if they were to show up and say, well, you know, apparently the impeachment is over, we're kind of looking for something to do here, and wanted to really bring you all out and talk about what you really found and look at some of these rectified images and look at some of this actual analysis that actually takes some time to understand as opposed to a soundbite. Do you think FCSR would respond, or would they have to hold back because of potential published papers or what other academic concerns?
I think we'd be able to respond in part. Some of the published papers, might be areas that we wouldn't touch, but I think in general you'd find a very welcome response from SPSR to get that kind of attention from the media. I myself, there's plenty of things that I can say to the media about the things that people just don't hear, and if they don't hear it, they don't know about it, and they don't have any interest in it.
Well, James, it sounds like you have a lot you could contribute to Bill, who publishes. Anyway, Bill, we're going to be leaving you at this point. I would like to give you a brief opportunity to plug UFO Magazine. If people would like to get it, how do they do it?
Here's how to get it. Pick up your phone and you dial 1-888-UFO-6242.
Say it one more time.
It is 1-888-UFO-6242. That's UFO Magazine. 1-888-UFO Magazine. Pick it up, dial the phone, order the magazine, tell me heard from Mark Bell, we'll send you a free issue.
Really? A free issue?
A free issue along with your subscription. The next issue coming up are the finalists for the photo contest, the UFO photo contest that we've been running for the past few months.
Bill, I've got to go. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much.
And thank you for having me.
In the next half hour, Jim Mars will join us. This is Coast to Coast AF.
Kingdom of Nye from outside the U.S. First, dial your access number to the USA. Then, 800-893-0903. If you're a first-time caller, call Art at 702-727-1222. From east of the Rockies, 1-800-825-5033. West of the Rockies, including Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, and New Mexico. Call Art at 1-800-618-8255. Or call Art on the wildcard line at area code 702-727-1295. This is Coast to Coast AM from the Kingdom of Nye.
It certainly is. In a moment, we're joined by Jim Mars. Jim is the author of Alien Agenda, investigating the alien presence among us, which examined the entire field and the alleged cover-up by the U.S. government. Prior to that, he penned Crossfire, a bestseller on the Kennedy assassination. So Jim Mars will join James Berjavic, and of course Stephen Bassett in Washington, D.C. All of that coming up in a moment. All right, back now to my guest, Stephen Bassett in Washington, James Berjavic, who is involved with the Society for Planetary SETI Research and the Case for the Face. And now Jim Mars, author of Alien Agenda. Gentlemen, welcome back to the program. Stephen, I think what would be fun this final hour is to just hear you guys convince.
I think that there's a wonderful irony and metaphor here, and that is that we have a gentleman on, James Berjavic, who's involved in some research on Mars, which if it goes where I think it's going to go, will virtually explode on the scene and change his life and a lot of other people's lives. And we've been joined by a gentleman named after the planet.
Who's been studying their Javits?
What now?
Who's been studying their Javits?
I thought that's what you were going to do. Jim and I are going to talk about a number of things a little later on toward the end of the program, but I wanted to give James a chance to say a little bit more about SPSR's mission and the book, educate people a little bit who may not know that a lot of mainstream scientists, a lot of mainstream engineers have been studying space intently and by no means put this aside at this point.
Okay, well, let me plug the book, The Case for the Faith. Probably the easiest way to get it is to go to Amazon.com. And my website, you can access through Art Bell's website. It's probably the simplest way to do that at this point. And there are a couple papers on my website now. They're geology papers, of course, but they talk about water on Mars and possible ice on Mars. Found possibly way before the polar lander that went off. This is water, a paper by Henry Moore, and it appears to be ice that is found in an impact crater. And go ahead and read Harry's analysis of that and my analysis of the face itself, which shows evidence of water erosion, possible shoreline features. So one of the things about Mars is, in life in general, and what NASA is looking for is we're looking for water. We talk about it in Europa, talk about it in Mars, talk about it on Earth. Water is an essential ingredient. The thing that kind of bothers me about Mars is they always seem to downplay it, no matter what. We have these vast areas of stream channels. I mean, almost certainly water had rushed through these. But, the answer from NASA is, it was a very short period of time. There were tremendous floods. There wasn't any long-standing water. We have a possible area in Mars which they were calling a Pacific Basin, possibly an ocean as large as the Pacific. Jack just asked me about planet lava.
Hold on a second. Hold on, one at a time.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Jim, was that you?
This is Jim. I want to ask James, is it true to understand that they have said that they have found traces of water on the moon?
Yes, they have it, Cole. They're not certain it's water. It's kind of hypothetical. It could be several things, but water is one of them.
Well, I don't think they have, though, and that really intrigues me because, from what I know, the moon has never had any volcanic activity or apparently has never been warmed, so how do they get water?
The standard line is that it comes from comets. That's the standard line. That's the standard line for how the ocean was formed on the Earth, is that it was cometary water that was input to the Earth.
That's right.
I don't know if that's true or not, but that's the standard line on that.
Well, if they would admit that there could be water on the moon, why are they so hesitant to talk about water on Mars?
I don't know. I don't understand. They talk about Mars as, it may have been Earth-like a long, long, long time ago, and that didn't last very long, and, life could have happened, and I don't understand, because Mars is very much Earth-like in a lot of ways. There are a lot of things that are very much Earth-like, and I really cannot figure out why. People come up with some very interesting papers, mainstream stuff about possible shoreline, possible lakes, possible ocean, and they seem to get cut down all the time by a certain group of authors who really don't want to see that, and I don't understand why.
Back to that same paradox, you've got increasing evidence that this could be a planet with a substantial amount of water. You've got these structures that are incredibly anomalistic. When you put the two together, it doesn't take a high school science student to respond to that. And yet when you raise the issue of intelligent life, NASA goes running in the opposite direction. And that that is a very odd thing that this agency and Dan Golden is going to have to eventually answer to the public about. But nevertheless, the science goes on, and the water is, I think, a significant new issue. Is there anything else? By the way, James, is possible Peter Carter mention some of the other people in the SBSR group? Give the listeners a little sense of the breadth of it.
I guess you could. Mark Carlotto is the main investigator. Horace Schrader, Dr. Horace Schrader, Professor Stan McDaniel, Lance Fleming, Harry Moores, a geologist. Mike Fleming is an engineer. I think he's worked at NASA at some point. We've got James Strange, who's in religious studies. We've got Errol Torrens is in the group. I'm just looking through John Brandenburg, of course, and Vince Petro, who was involved with discovering the face initially with Greg Molinar. I mean, it's a very broad, set of disciplines. Pretty much, got a question about something, you can find someone in the group who may be able to answer it for you.
Yeah, it's a powerful group. I mean, if anything breaks on this, in other words, if suddenly things come around and this artificiality gets confirmed, SDSR is in a superb position. I would expect that you all are going to virtually going to be on a worldwide tour. You're going to need press agents just to keep track of people who absolutely have to have your attention. And it's well earned. Some tremendous research here that's been done. And again, if there's anybody out there who's working on the staff of Ted Koppel or 2020 or Dateline, I don't want to rouse you out of your sleep or anything, but probably one of the biggest science stories in the history of the human race is staring you right in the face. You just might want to make a call, look into it.
Yeah, that's certainly my aspect in looking at this initially. I mean, I was skeptical about the whole face issue, and I had a colleague, get me tuned to Hogan stuff in the Daniels report, and I looked at things over and I said, hey, there's something to this, there's something on here, I don't understand. I wrote maps about it, never got a response. I mean, I came at it just from straight science, and decided to then ask if I'm not going to get any response from NASA. I mean, all I'm asking is, as a geologist, can you say something from your end? Why don't you believe this stuff? And I decided, well, can't get me anything like that, I'll do it myself and work on things. And it kind of grew from that point.
When I understand a couple of members of SDSR went out and gave a poster paper, one of the side deals, at the American Geophysical Union conference up in Boston.
That's correct.
And I believe that it started to attract some interest, and quite a few people came over and grabbed that paper. Is that true?
Yes, it did attract quite a bit of interest. Also, it did attract negative interest as well. And I mean, you're going to get that kind of stuff with something that is close to controversy. But it did attract quite a few questioners.
But are you all getting the invitations from some of the other bodies that are on pertinent sciences that appropriately you should be getting? Or are you all sort of being spun?
We're spun. Don't mention this stuff. I mean, ACU is one thing to do some of this, but if you were to try to get, I would imagine, science, nature, we'd be spurned on that stuff. We're very selective about what kind of things that they want to see. And I find that to be not really science, because science should be everything. If you've got some credible evidence and some evidence line of reasoning that goes behind it, then why can't it be peer-reviewed and, possibly accepted like that?
$4,000 question, and the American people, need to remember that they're paying every single penny of every single dime spent by their space agency, and not to mention huge numbers of government programs that are supporting space from the other military agencies. It's a vast sum of money, and when extraordinary things like this come along, these agencies look at you like you're nuts.
Well, one of the places that we're putting, to use a saying, is billions and billions of dollars is the new space station. Any comments?
I think it's like James, is the space station money well spent?
I'm not really up too much on it. I don't know, it is a lot of money. I'm not sure what their whole, what the goal is there. I mean, space station for what? Are we going to plan to move to the moon from there? We're going to plan a mission to Mars? Is it something we don't know? It's kind of, we're just going to float some people around for a while. I don't know, there's, what kind of studies are they doing? I mean, why make all these studies, in a gravity-free condition if you don't plan on doing something with that?
Well, here's the $64,000 question. I'll move back in time. Have we received our value from the space shuttle? And in answering that question, you really answer whether or not a space station that's going to cost a whole lot more is worth doing.
Good question.
Well, let me throw 2 cents worth in. During the Cold War, I questioned down here in Texas where there's a lot of military bases and there's a lot of big defense contractors like General Dynamics and Manley and Cobalt. And they would, and I know at the time of the TFX scandal, which turned out to be the F-111, which was imposed on both the Air Force and the Navy, and both those services said they really didn't want it, but they got it anyway. And it had a very checkered career and it was quite controversial. And I questioned people down here in those industries about, why are we continuing to throw this money into this? And in that particular instance, their rationale was that these were people who were holdovers of World War II, and they said, look, we went through the experience of being sneak attacked in Pearl Harbor. We'll never let that happen again. We have to keep these industries intact and operating, whether we need them or not, so that if we need them, we'll have them. And I think that we have an extension of that thinking with some of this space program today. They want to keep these contractors in business. They want to keep the money flowing. They want to keep the jobs on hand. And yet, I think everybody in this discussion would agree that, if we would throw more money at new and innovative technology, but we may not need a space station.
I'd like to also add something here that, I'm not trying to put James or Dennis on the spot by any means. The fact is that this group of scientists and people and thinkers are just about, it's about as pure science as it gets. They clearly are excited. There's an enormous amount of potential implications here. We're just incredibly excited. They've been putting a lot of time in this. Years go by because of the nature of where this planet is and how long it takes to get a shot up there. The fact that we keep losing spacecraft in critical moments. So they have to go through all these years. They're not making any money from this. So it's really pure science, and they're trying to interact with our space agency. A couple of weeks ago, about 5 weeks ago, John McLaughlin, one of the big political pundits here in Washington, has a program in addition to the McLaughlin Group called One-on-One. And this Sunday, particular Sunday, he had Dan Golden on as his guest, along with another gentleman, I think, representing NASA or their agency. And in the middle of this program, John McLaughlin, and I've been trying to get to him. I've talked at length with his aide, but I can't get beyond his aide. Trying to get him out. He turned to Dan Golden and out of blue, he asked him a very interesting question. Basically said, and I think I've got it right, one word may be off. He said, Dan, is NASA still involved in black budget programs? All right. And Dan took a pause, and Dan's a pretty sharp guy, very bright guy. He comes back with an answer that was rather interesting about this and about that, and about and so he really didn't answer the question. And then McLaughlin followed up and said, well, then essentially you have a firewall. He can't use the word firewall between you and the DoD. And then Dan Golden said something very interesting. He said, and I'm paraphrasing again, that the relationship between NASA and the Department of Defense was excellent. And everything was going along quite well there. And so there's a great deal of concern that NASA, on the one hand, is involved in defense-related projects, black budget projects, stuff that's not being oversight by the proper authorities. And on the other hand, you've got some wonderful scientists trying to do some absolute pure science to excite the world, and they're treated like, Cinderella, the orphan sister or the stepsister. This is a troubling thing. I'm not in the notice of, I could be wrong, but from just a citizen standpoint, someone who's actually paying the bill, your taxes, there's something very deeply troubling about that. And if American people would get behind some of these gentlemen, this group, a little bit more, they might get things moving in a little different direction.
Yeah, there's no question we need that. I mean, that's a big part of it. We're a bigger group than we were, but we're still really small compared to the government, compared to NASA, compared to JPL, and it's very difficult to persuade them to do anything.
You don't have any of your own launch vehicles?
James, this is Art. I'm curious. You have this collection of professionals. How far are they willing to stick their necks out? I mean, they communicate privately and say a lot of things, but when it comes to going public, how many of them really are willing to step forward?
You mean going public, making claims that we have found artificial?
Yes,
or just, okay.
Yes.
It depends if we feel the evidence is there. I'm willing to step out and go public and say, I sure think we still have a strong case for it, and there's some very anomalous objects that cannot be explained geologically. I'm not going to say they are for certain yet, because I'm a geologist that wants to do those kind of things. I'm willing to. I know there are a number of others who are willing to do those kinds of things and go public with it. I've had a number of interviews and talked with papers and things about it, and the other group members have. But then the interest all just went flat after that that box image.
Yes.
Thanks, this is Jim. Let me ask you this. How much clout, how much control does the pure scientists within NASA have over the program? I would suspect not much.
I would suspect the same.
Okay. Now, your question was, why is all this continuing? And let me offer this. Steve, let's say that you wanted to start a business. So you went down and made a business loan. You borrowed a lot of money. You started a business. You started to build. You borrowed more money. You borrowed some more money to try to keep it going. And then it really wasn't getting off the ground, so you borrowed some more money. And in the end, you never really turned a profit. It didn't really quite work like you wanted it to. Who in that scenario made money? The guy that loaned you all that money, right?
If you pay it back.
But you were, because you begin paying on it right away. If you're paying on it as you go, of course, if you go broke, but let's say that you're an honorable person, you continue to pay your debts, even though, and my point then is that the people, we have to look beyond the scientists, beyond the administrators. We have to look to the people who really are controlling and running this country. And I think there's a very good reason that this country is now in, $8 trillion in debt, because there are people who make money off of debt.
Well, that's how the whole nation runs.
That's right.
No question about that. James or David, it has been certainly a pleasure having you on, and would you like to plug the Case for the Face or anything else as we leave this segment?
Okay, yeah, Case for the Face one more time. Available at Amazon.com. It's worth the read. And there are other papers that on various other websites that have papers that can add to what we've already got in the case.
Southwest, I bid you all good evening or good morning, as the case may be. Boy, do I have news for you. Serious news for you this night on what we call Ghost to Ghost AM. So stand by. I'm developing information as of airtime. Information that I think is shocking, to say the least. Anyway, from the Hawaiian and Tahitian Islands out west there in the Pacific to the Caribbean and the U.S. Virgin Islands south, all the way into South America, north to the pole. And thank God for broadcast.com worldwide on the internet. You'll see why in a moment. This is Coast to Coast and Beyond. In more ways than one AM. I'm Art Bell. Hi. Okay. I'm going to hold the second and really whopper piece of information for a few moments. First, I want to tell you something that you may or may not believe. Ghosts are real. Whatever they are, I don't know. Whether whether they are souls trapped, whether they are souls, whether they're not souls, whatever they are, there's absolutely something as real and concrete as, I would say on Dreamland, as the air you breathe but don't see. And we're going to be talking about that tonight. The only thing we're going to be talking about is that, with one exception. And I'm going to begin the discussion with one of the most remarkable photographs you're ever going to see. I got it earlier in the day, thanks to my good wife who's opening the mail. And it's a heart stopper. It comes with a letter from Myrtle Creek, Oregon. Dear Mr. Bell, my name is Kim Moore. I live in Myrtle Creek, Oregon. It's a very nice lady. I recently, she says, went to Bartlesville, Oklahoma, to visit in-laws. My brother-in-law is a firefighter. There I was shown a photographed picture that was taken by yet another firefighter, a chief in fact, in Nixa, Missouri. That's N-I-X-A, Missouri. A shed was being burned for a practice fire. You know, fire departments do that kind of thing. They burn sheds and other things to practice putting out fires. The fire burst into a big flame that was bigger than expected. The fire chief took the opportunity to take a picture. And I hereby submit this picture to you. In the picture, unmistakably, I'm adding that word, I'm saying unmistakably, is the image of an Indian warrior. Now, I see an Indian warrior as clear as can be on a horse. Later, after the picture was developed, they saw the image. The firefighters found out later that the shed they burned was on Indian burial grounds. When I saw the image, I got chills. If you enjoy it, thank you, Kim Moore. Well, that's a handwritten letter. And I sent the photograph and the handwritten letter to Keith Rowan. Where is it? Oh, it's on my website right now. And if you want a chill for the night, if not the rest of the year, you're going to want to make it up to my website right away and take a look at this image. It is remarkable. First time caller line, you're on the air. This is Ghost to Ghost AM.
Hi.
Good morning. Hi, where are you?
I am Oregon.
Oregon, okay.
And anyway, my story is when I was really small, about 7, and this happened in my parents' home. My parents still live there. I saw this. I was laying in bed, and this entity just appeared before me. It was just totally frightening to me, and he didn't say anything, but I could see him as plain as day, as plain as looking at a person in a room.
What did this entity look like?
He had a long red robe on. He had black hair. He kind of looked like he was a mixed race between Oriental and the white, because he had both Oriental and Caucasian features. And he was standing there with his arms folded, and he was smiling at me. And anyway, he didn't say anything. And then my mom, who was laying there next to me, I just shaking her and trying to wake her up and like, Ma, look at this. And then by the time she finally woke up, it just vanished. It was really creepy for me. I've never seen anything like that since.
So what do you think you saw?
I don't know, because I've tried to do some research, and the house is not that old. So the only thing I could figure is there's something to do with the land, but I can't find any other information on the land itself. But I wonder, like my mom has seen something. It sounds similar to what I've seen. Only he was wearing white when she saw him, but he had black hair, had similar features to what I've seen. And I don't know, we haven't seen him.
You don't think you imagined it?
No, I'm sure I didn't imagine it.
You weren't doing drugs, you weren't,
No, I was just a little wee kid then. But I remember, you know.
Yeah, those were the days when little bitty kids didn't do drugs. Well, it's a strange world out there, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
I very much appreciate your call and your report. It is one of millions. Thank you.
Thanks.
East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Coast to Coast AM. Hi. Thank you. Get into that phone and yell at us because you're not too strong.
Okay, this happened in 1976. It happened in New Orleans. It was even in the newspaper.
Okay.
8 days before Halloween, grave robbers were going through some of the more affluent graveyards.
Yes.
As you know, we bury our people in tombs above ground.
Yes.
Well, like I said, it happened for 8 days, and on November 1st, All Saints Day, when people go all the time to clean up the graveyards,
Yes.
they found a young man walking around a tomb. He was repeating to himself, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. He was pulling his hair out. He was beating himself. Anything he could to hurt himself. Well, they called the police. The police got him and put him in the car. When they go to look at the tomb that he'd been walking around, they noticed that it had been broken into. When they went into the tomb, they found his accomplice sitting in a corner, eyes wide open, face completely drained of blood, almost powder, like baby powder white, holding a porcelain doll. They looked on the outside of the tomb. It was a 5-year-old girl had been buried after the scarlet fever epidemic.
Oh, my God. That's a true story?
That's a true story. To this day, I will not go back to that graveyard where my grandmother's buried.
I don't blame you for a moment. Bless your heart, sir. Thank you. Thanks for scaring everybody to death. All right, we're going to break here, and we're going to resume tracking this story. I'm Mark Bell. This is Coast to Coast AM.
Okay, you want to hear a true story?
Yes, I do.
I've been doing my family tree, and I heard a story about my great-grandmother who came from England, and my great-grandfather.
Yes.
And I looked it up, and she had a daughter named Annie, and around 1872.
Right.
She died at the age of maybe 2 or 3. She died from diphtheria. My mother told me that she heard her daughter making a noise at night, and they had kerosene lamps in them days. By the time she got the light on, that her daughter had died. She had a very hard time getting over it. So one night she was all alone in the house, and when whoever was out, the relatives or whatever came back, told him the story, and she said that his daughter had come to see her, and his daughter was standing there with another little girl. They were both holding candles, and she said, I hear you've been crying about me, poor mother. She said, you notice my friend's candle, how brightly the flame is burning? Look at my candle, the flame is flickering like it's ready to go out. The tears are putting out my candle. I don't want you to cry about me anymore. I'm happy where I am now. And when she told this to the people, I don't know how, they thought maybe she imagined it or something, but that's the story in my family. It's supposed to be a true story.
I appreciate the story, and let me tell you something. It meshes quite well with what you're going to hear on Sunday. There is going to be one fantastic Dreamland this Sunday. I know because I taped it earlier today. The subject matter concerns reincarnation, but more specifically, that period of time between incarnations. That period of time between, if you will, lives. You follow me? And that period of time is not particularly discernible because it is not time in a linear sense as we understand time. Hour by hour, day by day, week by week, month by month, year by year. Not that kind of time. A place place where time truly is meaningless. I think you'll find it to be one of the more interesting dreamlands you've heard in a very long time. It'll be this Sunday at whatever time you get Dreamland. My first time caller line, you're on the air. Good morning.
Good morning.
Where are you?
I'm in Oregon.
Oregon, okay. Do you
I
have...
got a lot of calls from Oregon tonight.
Yeah, that's true. And as a matter of fact, the letter I got with this absolutely astounding photograph also came from Oregon.
Yeah, I went and saw that.
Oh, you saw the picture?
I did.
Now tell me, did that jump out at you?
Yeah, instantly. I saw it instantly.
I know. I mean, for that to show up, and then to learn that the fire was right over an Indian burial ground. Well,
I know, it's just weird.
yeah, real weird. Anyway, do you have a story for us?
I do. Ever since I was a little kid, I've always seen weird stuff. But when my husband and I bought a house about 6 years ago, which we still live in,
Right.
A few months after we bought it, I had some shelves, and I had like little knickknacks and stuff on it.
Right.
And I had 4 kids, and every once in a while, all the little knickknacks would be turned around, facing backwards.
Oh.
And so I'd always go to the kids and say, "Now you gotta leave my stuff alone. Stop playing with my knickknacks and stuff." And they'd always say, "Oh, we didn't do it." So one morning I got up and I go into the living room and they're all turned around again. So I turn them all back around and I go and find the kids and I say, "Now listen, I'm telling you for the last time, you gotta leave my stuff alone." So I go back in there and this is like maybe 1 minute later and they're all turned around again.
And you had been with the kids, so they could not possibly have done it.
Right. I mean, as soon as I turned them around, I went and found the kids, and came back, and they were all turned around again.
Yeah, at this point, I'd go get the kids and get the hell out of there. What did you do?
Well, it wasn't like a scary feeling, it was just like weird. And then,
What a scary
the scary thing that happened though was, my son, he was, I think, 6 at the time, and he's in the back bedroom, and one night he said that he saw something in his closet. And being 6, he went and turned on the light and looked, and there's nothing there. So we told him to go back to bed. And my husband and I came back out to the living room, and all of a sudden we hear bang, bang, boom, and coming like from his room. And he just screamed bloody murder. And we ran in there, and all of his coats and stuff were swinging in his closet. So we told him he didn't have to sleep in there that night, and the next day I called our pastor, and he came over and blessed the house. Because that was pretty freaky.
And did that stop it?
No, not completely, but we've prayed a lot since, and it has stopped now. And the other thing that used to happen in this house was we have an attic up to a door up to the attic, and it used to open and close and open and close just a little bit.
Right.
And I told my husband, and he said, "Well, it's probably just a draft." And
sounds like every horror movie I've ever heard. In other words, they always say, it's just a draft.
Right.
And then somebody ends up mangled on the floor.
Right. And so a couple of years ago in Oregon, we had a really big windstorm, and that door never moved during that huge windstorm. And it was always when you'd say, "Oh, it's a draft," and you look outside, and the rose bushes, moving a little bit. It's just a little tiny wind, but when it was really windy, it never moved. And
I've got you.
And it's never happened, since all this other stuff has stopped. And
Well, that's good, because I'd have left the house, actually, long before that. I really appreciate your story. Thank you.
good night, Art.
Good night. So there you are. I'm chicken. I mean, if I were to go to a closet and I were to see coats wildly swinging back and forth, in a closet. I'm out of there. I'm really out of there. Now, that young lady is just like the young ladies that you will see in the movies. Young ladies with usually low-cut dresses. There'll be a sort of a clanking noise in the basement. And the young lady in the low-cut dress or blouse will immediately go where? Down to the basement. And I don't have to carry on the plot from there, you know what happens. So I wouldn't do that. Would you really? I mean, would you really? If you went to a closet, you opened it up like that young lady just said, everything swinging back and forth, would you just dismiss it? Things being turned backwards by invisible forces, would you just dismiss it? East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hello.
Good morning, Art. We are so thrilled you're back on the air.
Oh, thank you.
We have all been sending you positive thoughts, protection, anything we could to try to help you get back on.
Thank you. Where are you, Mike?
I'm in Fort Smith, Arkansas. I'm sorry. This is Marsha listening to you on KWHN,
All right.
1320 AM.
Thank you.
I wanted to call and tell you about the 3 ghosts that allow us to share their home with them. We have George, Bernadette, and Geraldine.
How do you know their names?
I have been in communication with them since March of this year.
And how did that begin?
I have gotten into automatic writing. I first communicated with my spirit guides and my dead husband, who, by the way, has now gone to the light to rest and prepared to come back. So I am a firm believer in reincarnation now.
Don't you miss Dreamland Sunday?
I will try not to. I wish I had a computer so I could call in tomorrow and tell you about my communications with him, because it's fascinating. Anyway, George Fort Smith is right on the Arkansas-Oklahoma border, home of Judge Parker, the hanging judge, the gateway to the Indian Territory.
Oh, yes.
And George was a shopkeeper back in the mid-1800s. He made quite a bit of money from his shop, and he also made some money selling alcohol and guns to the Indians. Not quite the honest, upright citizen. And come to find out, his son killed him to try to find his money, which he had buried in several fruit jars. And the way we found out about it is that my son, a couple of years ago, purchased a sword, Excalibur type sword, 4.5 feet long, has the dagger in the hilt, very fancy.
I have one of them.
He awoke one night and found it floating about a foot above his body, parallel to his body, just suspended in air. He looked at it and he said, okay.
Thanks a lot. I've got that exact sword, a big, heavy, 5-foot-long sword.
Yeah.
Excalibur, in fact, it says it, and it's got my name inscribed on it. And it hangs in my living room. So I really appreciate this story tonight. Thanks a lot. So here it is, hovering above him, huh?
Mm-hmm. And Jimmy just looked up at it and said, okay, put it down, leave it alone. They never bothered it again. But what kept him so calm during that episode is that they had played with his Hot Wheels vehicles in the past. He'd wake up in the night and see his cars moving around on the floor. But the most interesting thing about our ghost?
Yes.
Geraldine, the third one I mentioned, is a cat.
Is a cat?
Yes.
A cat ghost?
Yes. We have seen her. We've caught glimpses of her.
And how much, you say glimpses, kind of like something you see out of the corner of your eye, that kind of deal?
Part of it, but part of it is a little more direct look, like she's darting around the corner. We have cats, but we've never had one the color of her. We go in more for the darker colors or the calico. And she's very sweet. She was a stray cat that died under the front porch of the house. And our house is, I'd say, between 100 and 150 years old, the front part of it. There has been 2 additions since then. And George and Bernadette confined themselves to the front 2 rooms of the house, but Geraldine died recently enough that she roams the whole house.
Brother. All right.
Hello.
I appreciate all of this. We're going to have to communicate, you and I.
I would love to. I have had so many experiences the last 2.5 years. I was brought up Southern Baptist, and I have had to completely reevaluate and rethink all my belief systems.
Well,
I'd love to share.
Believe me, it would do that. All right, don't you miss Dreamland Sunday, all right?
I will try my best not to, Art.
All right, it's right up your alley, believe me.
Okay, again, we are so glad you're back.
Well, thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Take care. Now, there you are. West of the Rockies, you're on Ghost to Ghost AM.
All right, Art. This is Tamar in Los Angeles calling.
Well, hi there.
Hi, you remember me from the Mediterranean cruise?
I absolutely do. Of course, I will never forget your name.
Well, thank you. Thank you. A couple years ago, I took my daughter on a trip to New England. Actually, we were on the college tour to see which school she was going to pick for college.
Right.
And we went to see University of Vermont in Burlington. And after we had finished visiting the school, we wanted to drive around the area. We took a ride up to Stowe. And on the way, we saw this really neat graveyard. And she's extremely interested in graveyards. And so she asked me to pull over because, you know, in New England, they're very ornate and really neat looking. So I wasn't interested. I kind of stayed in the car, and she was walking around the graveyard. And then all of a sudden, it started to rain. And I don't know what possessed me to do this. I got out of the car and I said, "Hey guys, get up, it's raining." And my daughter said, "Mom, what are you doing?" I said, "I don't know." And, you know, I just, "Hey, get up, it's raining." So we get back in the car because we were getting wet. And we left the graveyard and went on our way. And as it started to get dark, all of a sudden the lights in the car started going off and on. And at first we didn't think anything of it. And then my daughter thought that I was doing it. And she said, "Mom, quit playing with the lights." And I said, "I'm not doing anything." And she said, finally she said, "No, you must be playing with the door. Because when you open and close the door, the lights go on and off."
Of course.
I said, "No, it's not me." And I put both my hands on the steering wheel. And then they started, as the time progressed, they started going off and on really frantically, very fast, and kind of a, you know, not at a kind of regular kind of on and off, but just kind of randomly. And we were both really, really freaking out. And, you know...
so many brave people. I mean, I wouldn't, at that point, I'd not be in the car. I would probably open the doors, I'd check the switch, I don't know what I'd do. Well, if it kept going, I'd be gone.
I found a gas station finally because it was very dark, and it's not like in Los Angeles where the streets are all light and bright. It's very dark in New England. I finally found a place to pull over and go in this gas station. And then we came back out into the car, and I was like a nervous wreck. I mean, I was just really blown away. I was so frightened. And so, first of all, I called in the light, which was, you know, put a light of protection around whatever it was doing, whatever was in there doing it. And my daughter had a heart-to-heart talk with this thing, and he said, look, it's really scaring my mom. Now, we're going back to Burlington. If you want to come along with us, it's fine. You're welcome to be here. We're happy to have you come with us, but please quit playing with the lights because my mom is getting so scared she can't drive.
So you're reasoning with whatever this is.
We did. My daughter was, you know, she did it because, you know, I was just putting the light around myself just for protection, but she felt that she would tell him that he was welcome, he or she, whatever it was. And as soon as she did that, when we got back in the car and drove away, it didn't happen again. And when I turned that rent-a-car in, I told the people what had happened, and I said, I want you to check out all the wiring. I want to know if anything was wrong with the wiring in that light system.
Right.
And I called them a few days later, and they said, I'm sorry, we had this checked out, and there was nothing at all wrong with that lighting system. And they had no explanation for me as to why the lights were going on and off.
But you know, don't you?
Of course I know. I know that someone came back with us to Burlington.
Well, that's New England, and it's old, and it's not surprising to me.
No,
these things are real.
For sure.
Listen, bless your heart.
Thank you.
Thank you, and take care. She was along on the Mediterranean cruise. That's a lot of fun. Way over way. Wow. Wild Card Line, you're on the air. Hi.
Hi, Art. How are you doing?
Well, you're listening.
Well, good deal.
So you know it's kind of a wild night.
It is. It's glad to have you back. You know, unfortunately, I've had the opportunity to get through to you a few times. One night in the restaurant, before I tell my ghost story right quick, one of the customers says, "Hey, Andy, I remember you from 6 months ago. I just want you to know I heard you the other night in Washington State." Well, that was when you had Charles Tartner from Berkeley.
I recall, yes.
Right, and that's the guy that went to the Bahamas and drank some water. And it was just a neat feeling hearing from this guy that, I mean, I felt like kind of a hero. I was like, wow, and I've turned so many people onto you. You know, it really is fascinating just to be a part of it.
Well, thank you.
Yes, anyway, 1995 March, my mother died. And first of all, I'm 31 now. I'm very down to earth, and I'm not really superstitious unless I have fact. You know, I'm just not one of those types. Well, I can't explain this. Now, I know when you lose a loved one, you're going through all kinds of emotional stuff, but I have witnesses.
All right. Witnesses, that's good. Listen, we're at a break point, so I'm going to have to ask you to hold on. I'll bring you back right after the break, all right? Let me hold my commercial break and go back to this poor caller on Wild Card Line, on one of the Wild Card lines. Thank you for waiting. I'm sorry that was stuff we had to deal with, sir.
Oh, no problem. I totally understand, and you're not going to get a bill. I'm just lucky enough to get through, you know. I'm a good fan. Okay, anyway, my mom died in 1995. We had a small farmhouse. And like I said, for the listeners, I'm not someone that is superstitious, really. I don't believe in something until I have most likely physical proof. Well, my mother was spiritual. She was a quarter Cherokee Indian. I don't know if that had anything to do with it. But anyway, 3 days after she died, you know, the family's still mourning and all that. Anyway, I got home late, about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I get in, and my dad came up from Florida and to, you know, finish up the house paint and stuff like that, make sure everything was good.
Sure.
He was sleeping. My brother was downstairs sleeping, and he's 32, and I know he wouldn't play games or anything. Anyway, I go up in the living room, I clear off the table, I get set up because I want to watch some TV before I go to sleep. And then it starts to rain, so I run outside because I left the windows open on my Ford. So I close that. When I came back in, I walk around the corner and I see an award I won in high school for most improved player when I played trumpet. And it was sitting on this little coffee table I had pulled up by the couch. And I was like, well, okay, that stopped me a second. Well, I picked it up and carried it back in the room and says, I don't know what that's all about. I didn't see it when it was there. Then I went out in the kitchen and my dad had made some brownies. My mom used to hate it when I never covered stuff up or anybody that wrapped stuff up. So yeah, all right, I got grabbed a few brownies and I played, go back out in the living room, and I'm sitting there watching some CNN, and all of a sudden I hear tinfoil. And I stopped a second, I put it on mute, I stopped a second, I'm listening. And I hear tinfoil crumbling. So I jumped up and I flew around the corner, and the tinfoil was nicely tight around the edge. And I knew right then, I had chills going up my neck. I was like, whoa. Because I know I don't cover stuff up like that, and I know I have that habit of not covering stuff up right. And so I went back out in the living room and lit up a cigarette, and I sat there. I smoked about 3 cigarettes, thinking this over.
Yes.
And, you know, when something like that happens, there really is no reaction, you know. It's happening.
What actually happens is you go into a kind of state of shock.
Exactly. And, you know, I think, you know, which is good because, you know, when you think about it, most people would be like, most people wouldn't believe the story anyway because they think you'd freak out. Well, there is no reaction.
It's a protective mechanism.
Exactly. Well, throughout the whole week, this was going on. Weird things. Well, I finally went to sleep and I told my dad and my brother about it the next day, and they're like, yeah, right. Well, my friend Chung, we had to go to Tennessee for the funeral because we buried her in Tennessee. And my friend Chung, who's in medical school, now graduated, congratulations, last month, Michigan State. Anyway, he stayed at the house for 3 days. And he's down-to-earth Korean, too. You know, he's just, you know, medical school guy. He doesn't believe in stuff like that. Well, he was scared literally out of the house. And he said it was like somebody was holding a cigarette, and it was just, he was looking for smoke, and there was nothing on fire. Well, when we got back from the funeral and all that, my brother's in the bathroom shaving, and I walked by, I look in the bathroom, and I see this smoke, and I'm looking, and he doesn't have a cigarette, and I said, did you drop your cigarette? He says, no. And I says, well, look at this. He turned around and we were studying this stuff.
I don't know what it was. And, my friend Chung witnessed this, and he said, he wouldn't make something like this up. I know him. I knew him for years, ever since we were kids. So I have my physical proof. I know ghosts exist. Why was my plaque sitting on the table? I mean, that's, my mom told me. Why would I hear tinfoil on the brownies? So that was my experience, and I don't know what this smoke was, but I was sitting there studying it. I was like inches from it, just looking at this. It just kind of evaporated, and it looked exactly like if you held a cigarette still. Just watch this. It was that thick.
Brother. Oh, brother.
And that's physical proof. And the vacuum light would go on and off. Lights would go on. And, it wasn't like the movie Poltergeist, but it was always a pleasant, it was always a pleasant experience. My neighbor smelled Christian Dior. Well, my mom, it was her favorite perfume. It was like $132 an ounce. But it was really nice stuff. And everybody could smell this. And after about 3 weeks, things just kind of chilled out. And then they just all went away. And it's like a vibration came back to, there was nothing going on.
To you too, my friend, I say don't miss Dreamland Sunday.
Definitely.
Thanks.
Listen, thanks, Art.
Take care. And thanks for waiting so long. All right, back to it we go on our first-time caller line. You're on the air. Thank you for holding on. I know. Where are you?
Tucson.
Tucson. All right. You're going to have to kind of yell at us a little bit. You're not too loud, so go ahead.
Okay. Yes, my mom and dad, they always saw the neighbor come across the yard with a can of beer, so to have them see somebody didn't seem all that strange. But she came to visit me one time, and my husband, and the kids and stuff, and just down the hall to the kitchen, and I don't know, you have to go through the kitchen and into the study.
Right.
But I could see her, and she went in the kitchen, she said, "Where's Honey?" I said, "Look." She came out into the dining room where I was, and she says, "Where's Ronnie?" And I said, "I told you, Mom, he's working." So, you're not going to believe it. I saw him coming from the closet and the front door is about the same, distance apart, but there's space in between where there's more room into the living room than there was, it was a closet.
Right.
I saw him coming from the closet into the kitchen. He was wearing shoes, they were untied, no socks, pajamas, and his robe. And I said, "You're not going to believe it, but I saw that too." And the minute I got into the kitchen, it left my mind. It erased it. If I'd have remembered it, I'd have been so scared. But he wasn't dead. He was not dead. And he still isn't.
So what do you think you saw?
Well, what we saw somebody that was just like him. And I don't know, I've never heard that. Never heard anybody ever tell anything like that.
Has it occurred to you to think about the nature of time?
You mean that someplace in the future?
Or the past? In other words, if you're seeing an image or an apparition of somebody who is presently alive, then obviously we can rule out the fact they're a ghost, right?
Well, it was something.
It was something, all right. Okay, thank you very much. And I'm sure some of the rest of you understand what I'm driving at here. What if it was, in fact, him, but simply at a different time? We've had a lot of reports of that, of time seeming to slip on occasions. Just kind of a slip. A very, very interesting story that I read not long ago about a man who was hearing voices, and it was really fascinating. I wish I had it in front of me to read to you right now, but every night these voices would move a few inches until finally, months later, he was hearing these voices. He had to actually stand up at the back of his yard to hear these voices, and they continued to move in the same direction. They were available to be heard every single night. Remarkable. East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hi.
Yes, Art.
Yes.
This is John in Alabama. I listen to you on WJSC 640 AM out of Atlanta.
Hi, John.
I've got a ghost story for you, but it's also actually a question about whether a community can be involved in a site.
A whole community?
Well, a small area of a community. What happened was this site took place between me and we know of 8 or 10 of the people that were with us that night. We were all in separate areas. A friend of mine was killed in a car wreck. We were about 12, and we had a game we used to play. We called Spotlight. You take a flashlight at dark, and you go out and flash people in the light, and they're it.
Yes.
Well, we're all spread out over this hill, and my next door neighbor, I was going around the side of his house, and I still get chills thinking about this thing, but came up to me and asked me where his mom and dad were. And I told him they had left earlier that night going to a revival down the road. He didn't think any more about it. And the next morning when I got up, my next door neighbor's house, the house I was at, there was cars all over the place. I asked my parents what everybody was doing next door, and they said that Tim, the boy that I had talked to that night, had died. He got killed. The drunk driver had run a red light and hit him head on, him and some of his friends about 4 hours away. At the exact same time I talked to him. And,
how did you handle that?
Not much better than what I handle it thinking about it now. But what happened about 13 or 14 years later, one of the people that was with us that night was killed in a car wreck, and me and 2 of my friends, because it was out of town, went up to the funeral home to visit with the family and all. And when we were coming back down the interstate, my friend looked over at me and said, well, at least you didn't visit me. And I just kind of snapped my head over at him. And we got to talking. I pulled off the interstate, and I said, what are you talking about? He relayed the same thing to me. And we got to talking about it, my friend in the back seat was with us that night, too, and he said, same thing happened to me.
Well, that would do it for me.
And what was another getter? We ended up talking to everybody that we could, and everybody but one person saw the same thing.
Well, then you've got a story that should be printed.
Well, this was 3 occurrences of this. I mean, once was a ghost. Once we thought, like 30 people ran across this hill to go to a plane crash that happened 50 miles away from the house. I mean, we saw the plane. And I'm just wondering, because my friend had made the remark the other night, what's brought this all back up, and what's scary about it, they've moved back into his parents' house. And he calls me about a week ago, maybe 10 days, asked me to meet him for coffee, and I did. And his daughter's seen her best friend killed herself, and that night, we assume it was sometime around the time the young lady killed herself or after. She said that her friend came to her house and she tried to talk her out of killing herself. And this has all happened in this one little area.
Yeah, one little area. And that's something that should all be...
through time, we just don't know what to think about it.
Well, I think, thank you very much. As much as you just told me, that should be documented in print. I would think that a journalist should be in contact with you, and that with so many witnesses, so many people telling identical stories, what you just said was important enough to be documented as proof. More than just anecdotal proof. Mass hallucination, maybe? That's a lot of coincidence. West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hi. Where are you?
I'm in Aurora, Colorado.
And I can barely hear you, so you're going to have to yell at us.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Sort of, yeah, a little better. What is your first name?
My name is Paula.
Paula, all right.
Yes.
Do you have a ghost story?
Yes, I was around 8 years old, and my sister and I were sleeping, and I had two large tomcats that were sleeping in our room with us, and I woke up in the middle of the night because they were hissing, they were running around the room, and they started running across the bed. So I woke up, and I looked towards the door, and there's this huge object, it looked like a dog, huge object by my door, and I was terrified, and my older sister was sleeping with me, and I woke her up, and she seen the same thing. It was a dog.
A dog?
Like a huge dog.
That would cause cats to hiss, all right.
And my cats were terrified, and they usually don't do, they've never done this before.
So what happened?
My sister finally got enough nerve to move over to the lamp because it was closest to the door. We turned it on, and it disappeared.
Just like that, huh?
Yes, and we told our mother this, and she just ignored it, said that we were just making it up.
All right, listen, hon, hold on a moment. We'll be right back to you. Break time, we'll be right back. And I'm back, and we're going to try and get the rest of this story if I can find this young lady among all these lines, because I forgot where she was. West of the Rockies, are you there? Okay, that is you. Yeah, you're really going to have to shout at us. Anyway, the apparition of a dog, the lights went on, boom, the apparition is gone. Then what?
Our cats were still terrified. They were in the corner. They would not move. And the next morning, we told our mother this. And she just blew it off, said that, we were just making it up.
Right.
Our imagination was just going wild. And we were terrified of that room after that. We wouldn't sleep in there. We slept in the living room. And a few days after that, we lived in a two-story home. My father and I, we were upstairs with my mother, and my mother was about to go downstairs. We witnessed her feet, her legs, flying up from under her, and she careened down the stairs.
She tripped over the dog.
Oh, I don't know. But her feet just went right under her, and we ran downstairs to help her. And after she got her bearing and stuff, she started yelling at my dad and I, asking which one pushed her. And we were not near her at all. And she kept thinking that one of us pushed her.
Right.
And after we finally made her believe that no one was around her at that time, we moved into a different house.
The first sensible caller I've had tonight. Thank you so much. That's right. Goodbye. Different house, different town, possibly entirely new continent. That's what I do. And so many people seem to do the opposite. They seem to stay right there and somehow fight it out. This is one area where I don't think that I would do that. There are a lot of brave souls out there. First time caller line, you're on the air. Hi.
Hi, Art.
Hello.
It's good to have you back.
Good to be here.
My name's Tim in Portland, Oregon.
Yes, Tim.
And I grew up in a haunted house. I lived there about 10 years. Boy, I'd like to have moved much sooner than that.
But you did move.
Oh, yeah. And I don't even want to step in that neighborhood. It was so bad. We had a cat, and we'd be sitting watching TV or in bed or whatever, and the cat would just suddenly jump up and start hissing and clawing at something, and we couldn't see a thing. And the cat would go running from the room, and of course we'd follow shortly after. Things would happen like we'd be washing dishes, and Cheerios would fly across the room and be hitting whoever was washing dishes in the back. And we had doors that would open and shut, and light bulbs would explode.
You saw all of this yourself?
Oh, I did. My brothers and sisters and my mom and dad, we all.
Now, could you possibly have stayed in that house for any period of time at all after all this was going on?
I asked my parents that, and they said that we were very poor at the time. They just had no way to move out. But,
that makes sense.
Yeah. The light bulbs would explode. We had a bathroom right off the kitchen, and the light bulbs would explode in there. And they wouldn't just explode, but they'd be powdered glass.
Powdered glass? That is an explosion.
And we never saw them explode or heard them, but all the time in the morning we'd get up and there's powdered glass all over the floor. And about 9 or 10 o'clock every night we'd hear footsteps and voices coming up the stairs to the second floor. And you couldn't see anything, but you could sure hear them. And one time my sister and I were at school, and my brother wasn't old enough to go to school yet, and he kept asking my mom, "Why is that girl crying? I hear a girl crying." And my mom said, I don't hear anything. He said, "Well, there's a girl. She's crying. She needs help. She's upstairs. She's crying." And my mom listened real carefully, and she started hearing it herself. And they got out of the house real quick because there was no one there but my mom and my brother. And years later, well, not too many years later, but my older sister, her girl was staying with us, and she was sleeping upstairs. And we heard her just having a good old conversation, and we went up there and peeked into the room, and she's just talking to thin air, answering questions and talking. And we walked in and asked her, who are you talking to?
Yes.
And she said, don't you see her, the girl? There's a girl. And she'd point up to the corner of the room and say, "A pretty girl, she's sad." And she'd just talk to this girl. It was scary. It's unbelievable.
Absolutely. I appreciate the story, sir. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
This is what happens when you ask for stories like this. You get them. Wild Card Line, you're on the air. Good morning.
Hello.
Hello there.
Yeah, my name's Fred. I'm listening on KINY in Juneau, Alaska.
Hi, Fred.
I've been listening to the radio show on the phone here. I just wondered if I'd been cut off or what.
No, you're not cut off. You're here. You're on.
I'm here with my ghost story.
All right.
Okay. This was, I didn't know it was a ghost story at the time it was happening, so that's why I didn't move out. But we had just had 3 kids at that time. They were very small. The oldest one was about 4, and the youngest one was in a crib. And we had bought one of those old row houses in Baltimore, Maryland.
Right.
And we were trying to restore it back to the old condition, the original condition. And we were on the 3rd floor scraping paint. And our kids were on the 2nd floor taking a nap. And then all of a sudden, both of us, my wife and I, heard what we thought was my sister's husband holler at the kids to get off the banister.
Mm-hmm.
So we went downstairs to see what he wanted and to see, get the kids off the banister. We got down there, and they were down on the 1st floor. And we said, you're not supposed to be on the banister. And looked around, didn't see their Uncle Rocky. So we said, where's your Uncle Rocky? And they said, we don't know. And so I said, well, didn't he just holler at you to get off the banister? And they said, no. I said, well, who hollered? They said, well, that was our friend. So I started thinking, well, who's coming in the house? Because the house was all locked up back in Baltimore at that time. And the neighborhood was already starting to deteriorate. So we started questioning. And the little kids, it's hard for them to answer the questions. Hands big, wearing clothes. And then finally, the oldest kid, my boy, said, well, I think he might be sick, though. And I said, well, what makes you think that? And he said, well, his head is all bandaged. So then I started thinking, somebody putting on a disguise coming in and go grab my kids. And we worked on the house for a while longer, and every once in a while, we kept close watch, but every once in a while we'd ask the kids if their friend had been back, and every once in a while they'd say, yeah, he was here today or yesterday. And we never did quite figure it out, but we eventually ran out of money and had to sell the house, move somewhere else. And then later on, I ran into a person who had owned that same house back during the Second World War, and that's the person that had divided it off into little rooms on the 2nd floor and a sleeping room for the war workers during that time.
Right.
So she was telling stories about people that lived there, and lived there, and he got a sore throat, and he went to the doctor. He was one of those people that was just nasty clean. You know, he washed everything in alcohol and wore gloves, and he went to the doctor.
You can get manic about that.
Yeah, and he was manic about that, but anyway, the doctor told him he had cancer in the throat. So he went back home, and he bandaged his head, put a gun in his mouth, and pulled the trigger. And as soon as I heard her say that, I could hear my son say, I think he's sick because his head is bandaged. And I thought, that's who that was that's in that house talking, tell him I get off the banister.
Oh, brother.
Yeah, so anybody that starts talking about suicide anymore, I tell them that story about that.
That ought to do it.
And, tell them, hey, you might have to stand around there for 10,000 years and still suffering the same thing.
I appreciate the story, sir.
All right.
Right, and to you two and to everybody else, I recommend Dreamland on Sunday. Again, that was one of the topics covered. One of the topics covered. Just absolutely a remarkable show. Coming up this Sunday on Dreamland, it was ostensibly to be about the period of time between lives, between incarnations. I think you'll find it absolutely riveting. All right, here we go. East of the Rockies, you're on Ghost to Ghost AM. Good morning.
Good morning, Art Bell. Wonderful to have you back.
Thank you. Good to be here.
I guess we'll start with myself at the age of 15.
All right.
My uncle, who I was very close to, passed away rather suddenly. Took all of us by surprise. Of course, we went through the regular period of grieving and all that, and no big deal. Okay, 2 years later, at the ripe old age of 17, my parents and I had moved into a new house. And one night, I woke up, see my uncle standing at the foot of the bed. You know, and of course, I spoke to him. Uncle Ken, is that you? Why are you here? And he relayed to me that he was there sort of as my guardian angel, that he had been watching over me and would continue to watch over me for the rest of my life. And I thought, yeah, okay. So next morning, I woke up, I got up, and I brushed it off as a dream. He had told me the night before that he had come from the well under the house. And I thought, well, there's no well under this house. We're in a city, we're city water and all that. There's no well. So I went to have breakfast with my mother and father, and I thought, well, I'll ask them without making them think I'm crazy. And I asked, is there a well under this house? And my mother said, of course not. And my father interrupted and said, yeah, there is.
Really?
And he had it dug when the house was being built on the slab because he didn't want to have to pay the extra to have the water hooked up to the city, because if you had a well, they charged you an extra tax or something.
That's right.
Anyway, to this day, and I'm now your age, a DJ at a country radio station in western Kentucky. My name is Daryl, by the way.
Yes, Daryl.
To this day, when I have a stressful time in my life, when I need an answer, it's there. He tells me what to do.
In what form?
Standing at the foot of my bed. It's as though I were looking at him. It's as though he's there. It's not a misty, like you would imagine a ghost to be. There's a human being there. I've never been able to touch him. If I try to raise up and get closer to him, then, the length of the bed, he disappears. And he always, as he disappears, he tells me, this is as close as we can get. But what's more incredible about all this is that the last time I talked to him, the last time he came to me was 3 nights after he went off the air. I was lying listening to a repeat. He came to me, he told me, don't worry, he's coming back. And I thought, oh no, this is something wild. He said, no. He mentioned Ramona. He said, you and Ramona are more tuned into the spirit world than you realize. And he said, for me to get in touch with you and ask you about, not ask you, but tell you about the antenna. Does that mean anything to you?
Yes.
Okay. You want to say now, oh my God.
Oh my God. Yes, the antenna means something.
Great.
All right, I appreciate the call, sir. Thank you. And I don't even want to talk about that, actually. But yes, that means something. And I have a feeling you knew something from somewhere else, or
something else. Well, west of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hello.
Hi, Art.
Hi.
I knew you'd be back.
Well, then you were right.
Yeah, just my intuition. But I'm glad you're back, and I, among millions of others, were projecting good thoughts toward you and your family.
Thank you.
Anyway, the story I'd like to tell occurred about 12 years ago in Klamath Falls. I'm in Springfield, Oregon, and my name's Robert, by the way.
Yes?
Anyway, this was about 12 years ago, and me and four of my friends, we were at one of their houses. And I want to stress this right away, none of us were doing any drugs or alcohol.
Okay.
But as the night progressed, we were just having a little get-together. Strange things started happening. The first thing was my friend Vince noticed that across from his trailer, there was some train tracks. And on the other side, there was a box, I guess, for track switching mechanisms or something.
Yes.
And he noticed that there was something moving. Really dark, and he couldn't tell what it was. And he said, "Hey guys, come look at this." We went over there and we took a look, and we all saw that there was something moving. We couldn't tell what it was. Well, after a while we just brushed off, and it's probably nothing, just shadows. The wind was blowing a little bit. And we went back to what we were doing. About 15 minutes later, we hear this loud wham on the door. We fly open the door, and there's nothing there. We're looking around. We come out and we look around and see if it's someone playing a trick or something. And when we went back towards the door, it had swung shut, and there was a handprint on this door. And this handprint wasn't, I don't know how to explain it, but it didn't look like you would expect. And it was brand new door, brand new trailer. Well, we thought, this is just too weird. We looked around again, we went back in, we went back to what we were doing, a little weirded out, but after a while we heard something from across the tracks, and we looked, and we could see these forms moving. And as the night progressed farther and farther, these forms would move out, they'd come down into the dip where the tracks were, back up, moving around, darting around, really strange. And I mean, it was just, every one of us were pale as a ghost, and our hair was standing on end. It was just bizarre. Well, finally, it seemed to settle down. So we decided, well, let's relax, let's try to get this out of our mind, throw a little soft music, relax, try to get some sleep. We all lay down, and we all, try to sleep. And then we hear this wail. I mean, I've heard tales of banshees that wouldn't even compare to this. We all bolted straight up onto our feet, just in time for a train to go zipping by.
Oh, brother.
To this day, we don't know what those shapes were. And we don't want to know.
I was about to add that myself.
But that train just added fuel to the fire. And even now, my skin is crawling.
I understand. It's like reliving it, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
To tell you.
And it's just one of the many stories I could tell you. Oregon is a very strange place.
It is. Ghostly Oregon.
Oh, yeah.
I appreciate the call, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, take care.
We've had many calls like that from Oregon for some reason. East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hi.
Yeah, I was wanting to talk to you about your picture of the Indian on the horse.
Yes, sir.
I live in Springfield, Missouri.
Yes, sir.
Which is about 10 miles from Nixa.
Oh, yeah, I had no idea where Nixa was, so...
Okay. Nixa is just south of Springfield, Missouri. It's a small community.
Right.
Basically, if you look at that picture, you will see down at the bottom, you will see some other things in it. I think it's a wagon wheel and some pottery.
That may be, I don't know. I haven't looked. I'll have to go back and look. What jumped out at me, unmistakably, I didn't have to sit there and look at it and stare at it. there's no question. It looks like an Indian warrior on a horse to me.
Right.
Do you see that clearly?
Oh, yeah. I've seen the picture. There's a lady that I work with that is a volunteer fireman at that fire department. And she brought a picture to work and showed.
The rest of the visit was uneventful. No apparitions, no funky stuff until the stay at the hotel never showed up on my credit card bill. Now, I'm a relatively honest person, and under normal circumstances, I probably would have called the hotel bill or not have told them about their oversight. However, when viewed with everything else that occurred, the calendar, the upgrade, the free drinks, the free dinner, it was rather apparent to me that I had indeed been a guest, Kate's guest, at the Hotel del Coronado. She is a fine hostess, and I hope to return one of these days. And I have, of course, many more like this. And if any of you have a particularly good ghost story, we're going to do two things. One, we are going to tell ghost stories from those of you who call on the phone lines. And we are going to also invite you, rather than sending in a fax with your ghost story, if you have a particularly good one, send me a fax with your phone number, and I will call you open. So wherever you are in the world, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, if you have a ghost story, and I do have one sent to me here from Belgium. I've got another one from South Africa. All lines, all nights, all ghost stories. Here we go. First time calling line, you're on the air. Good morning.
Good morning. This is Terry calling from Eugene, Oregon.
Hello, Kay. How are you? You're going to have to get too close to the phone because you're not too loud.
How's it?
That's better.
All right. Well, my boyfriend's brother, he moved into this house in Providence, Rhode Island. And come to find out, it used to be a funeral home. And, like, they have the places, like, in the basement where, you know, they burn the bodies and did all that crazy stuff.
Cremation.
Yeah. And now he feels like there's a ghost there. Like, things would be missing, like things you don't misplace, like toothpaste, cutting board, just gone.
Gone.
And one time, his roommate, you know, they were just sitting there drinking coffee. His roommate went to his room because he finished his cup, and he came back out, and it was completely filled hot. Jason didn't get it for him or anything. And it wasn't even made right how he likes it. And he said sometimes, you know, like a door will slam. One time he actually had to leave because he was so scared because there was like rubbing all on the walls and clanging noises.
You know, let me tell you a little story back now.
Okay.
I saw a movie the other night. I can't recall the name of it, unfortunately. Now a million people will send it to me, but it was about a man who went to work in a morgue.
Uh-huh.
And he was a guard in the morgue. And he would have his little guard desk, and he'd have his little, you know, guards have keys, and they have to make the rounds and turn the key so that the owner knows they really made their assigned rounds at night. And he had a desk and a workstation when he wasn't having to make his rounds. And there was this red light behind him. And in the morgue, they would have the bodies all lined up on these cots covered with sheets in a what's called a cold room.
Mm-hmm.
But above each body, there was a pull cord. You know, a cord you could pull.
Just in case.
Just in case. And should somebody pull that cord, it would obviously mean to the guy sitting at the desk that one of the bodies in the morgue had reanimated. Not unheard of. And I'm not going to tell you any more than that, but I will tell you it went off.
Wow.
Okay?
Yeah, it's pretty weird. And is there like, who would you go about calling? Say if you wanted to have like a specialist come in there and see, you know, what was going on. Any idea?
Oh, yes. I have many people. In fact, the guest I'm going to have on this coming Monday night might be exactly the person you're looking for.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy because, you know, they have...
His name, now listen to me, is Jerome Clark, and he wrote a book called Unexplained, Strange Sightings, Incredible Occurrences, and Puzzling Physical Phenomena. Now, he'll be here Monday night, Tuesday morning next week. Somebody like that is the kind of person you need. Okay?
Definitely. Thanks so much for your help.
You bet. Take care, and good luck. Wildcard Line, you're on the air.
Yes, Art, this is Greg from El Cajon, California.
Hi, Greg.
How are you, Art?
Just fine.
I have a good one for you.
Okay.
Do I have about 4 or 5 minutes?
You do.
Excellent. My wife's mother had died back in February, actually on February 13th of this year. And prior to her death, my wife and children and I had stayed with her overnight in that house on many occasions.
Sure.
Just a normal home. Nothing strange. Very comfortable there. No problems whatsoever.
You would just be visiting her and stay the night?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Taking us the house at the time of her death went into probate. And, of course, my wife and her siblings not wanting to leave the house empty, of course, because of vandals and that sort of thing. My wife and our 2 daughters and our unborn son moved into that empty house on March 1st of this year.
Makes sense.
Shortly after, my family and I took occupancy of the home. Certain events started to take place.
Like what?
Well, just to paraphrase you also, at this time, on around March 10th, we adopted a German Shepherd Beagle mix that it made my wife feel a lot better, of course, because I work late at night, sometimes till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning.
Like me.
Yeah, there you go. And it gave her a peace of mind because the house was out in the country. Okay.
Like me.
Yes, sir. And within the first 2 weeks that we took up residence in my wife's deceased mother's home, my wife would relate to me from time to time that she felt as she was being watched intensely. I myself, at the time being a complete skeptic, dismissed the information as an overactive imagination, which I probably should not have. That was my belief until the evening of March 16th, 1998, when my eyes were widely opened. On that evening, I was having dinner with my wife and children, and my sister-in-law and her 2 children, teenage children, were over to the house for dinner, just a few weeks after moving into the house. Everyone had left but my wife and I was sitting in a position in the dining room, at the dining room table area, that allowed me to look all the way down the hallway into one of 3 bedrooms, which was my youngest daughter's at the time.
Sure.
At that point, I saw something that was still hard for me to describe. It was an aura of what seemed to be a woman's form, with a lot, to me, of what seemed to be energy around.
In other words, indistinct, kind of a foggy white aura.
Yes, sir.
All right.
And it definitely was. It seemed to be the shape of a woman to me. Mm-hmm. I was so motionless and locked into what was happening at the time that I almost lost relative consciousness of where I was, except for what was going on in that room. My wife was sitting over to the right of me and asked me what I had seen, and I described it to her, and she said something to the effect of, "You too?"
You too?
Yeah.
You mean she saw it as well?
She had seen and felt things before me, and yet had never, over that period of time, that 2-week period since we'd moved in there.
Can you hang on through the break?
Absolutely, Art.
Stay right where you are. When one sees it, you can imagine a bit of undigested meat. When 2 see it, well... My suggestion, turn the lights down, turn the radio up, get as comfortable as you can, because some of what you hear is going to require you be in a nice, comfortable place. By the way, with respect to my story about the Hotel Del Coronado, I just got this. Hi, Art. My sister-in-law actually works at the Hotel Del Coronado as a concierge. She says the ghost stories are real, and you can, even if you wish it, rent. I repeat, you can rent the haunted room. That's from Jeff in Amherst, Ohio. Wonder if that's really true. Thank you, Jeff. And by the way, for any of you who have ghost stories out there, just send me a fax and tempt me. Tell me how good it is and give me a phone number. If I am tempted enough, I will call you and get you on the air. My fax number is area code 702-727-8499. If you can't tempt me in one page, you can't do it, so hold it to one page. And now, back to the gentleman who saw the apparition down the hall in the bedroom and then turned to his wife, and his wife saw it too, right, sir?
Yes, she had seen it, but it was at a different time.
And so then what? I mean, did you sit there and compare notes with her, or what?
Well, I had the hair was standing up on the back of my neck, Art.
I'm sure it was.
And I didn't know what to think. I just moved my wife and my children into a house, and I didn't know how long I was going to be there.
Did you think about getting out?
You know, at that point, I really didn't know.
You know what? I actually, it's so easy to say, man, I'd be out of there like a shot. But the fact of the matter is, there are financial considerations, there are physical considerations. You have a wife, you have children, you have a lot of furniture, you moved into a house. So you don't just immediately make a decision to split.
Let me tell you, the rest of my notes that I have here for you that I compiled today, you're going to think more and more why we didn't actually get out. On or around March 22nd, I was alone in the house. And my wife had left with her sister and my children. They went over visiting for the day. It's around the noon hour. I was preparing to leave for work. I'd just come out of the restroom that adjoined our master bedroom. Bear in mind, our bedroom used to be my deceased mother-in-law's bedroom.
Oh.
In a fairly quick instant, I looked over my right shoulder, and I can see this as plainly as the day that, in my mind, is the day that I did see it. In just a few seconds' time, I saw my deceased mother-in-law leaning over the dresser area where her dresser used to be in her room. And it appeared as if she was leaning over to place something down.
This time she was of more form?
Yes. Shortly thereafter, that situation, our interesting and strange phenomenon began to occur. My deceased mother-in-law there was a beautiful type plush white carpet, very white carpet in her home. It was throughout the home. There was no variance throughout any of the rooms whatsoever. And I'm just giving the details so the listeners understand what I'm about to say. One morning, I believe it was the end of March, 1st of April, my wife said, "Honey, come look at this." And I said, "Well, when you walk barefoot on the carpet, Art, it would leave almost a type of imprint of your foot."
I understand exactly what you're saying, yes.
And so we experimented a little bit. This was not my wife's footprint, Art. It wasn't my footprint. And it was much too large to either be either of my daughters.
Sure.
So we just stood there looking down, and my wife said, "I know it's my mother's. I know it's my mother's footprint," and she lived with her mother until she married me. Until she was, 19 years of age. She felt that, also too, from that time on, the constant set of eyes or being watched was all the more ever present. Our dog, on many occasions, Art, would stand up and stare across the house into our bedroom, whining, staring.
I'm going to ask, it's an embarrassing question. You don't have to answer this, but if it was your wife's mother,
yes, sir,
running the house, present in the house, didn't that kind of take the edge off moments of intimacy for your wife?
Well, at that time, Art, and like that is a personal question. My wife was only about 3 months from delivering our son.
I see. You say no more. That's
She was
right.
very pregnant.
Otherwise, I can imagine there would be some trouble.
I can understand what you're saying, and I do agree with that.
Mom, if you're listening, you know what I mean.
Okay. In the summer months, another factor started to come into play, Art, and this is one when I was writing it earlier this evening. I guess I'm listing this in as much of a chronological order as I can.
Sure.
I was reluctant to discuss this, and the only reason I am discussing it right now is after we've moved out and we're living where we're living now, I asked my wife if she, I didn't want her to think I was nuts, so I asked her, and she looked at me and said, yes, I had to, and this is the next part of the story. At night in my wife and I's bedroom, which of course was my deceased mother-in-law's, at times my vision in the dark, I would lay awake at times and it would start to blur. Eerie, if not demonic type faces would appear in the dark room. They would come, it was very sharp to me, and they would fade out slowly.
That would be enough for me.
And the thing that bothered me about this, Art, was if this was my mother, it wasn't that obviously to me was not my mother-in-law, obviously. Her appearance was not as foreboding as this particular situation. And that's when I started thinking, my God, is there a portal or something else that follows?
That's exactly where I was about to go. We've got to wrap this up, but that's exactly where I was going. Is there a clothesline to this, or is that essentially, did you get out of there, or what?
Well, at that point, those things were starting to happen at the end of the summer. There were thumping noises on the wall, many occasions at the noon hour, almost on certain days. Frequently the phone would ring. There would never be anybody there. And the one thing that I would like to say, Art, and this is probably of some interest to you, I often wonder at this point if the intrusion taking nothing but a appearance by my mother-in-law in the last few recent days to my wife has appeared. There hasn't been anything since we moved to our new home.
Mm-hmm. Well, all right. Listen, thank you so very much. There are two things here. One, it's pretty well known, and I can't explain why. Maybe you can. Maybe one of you can. Why a spirit apparently trapped on Earth, or one that has not yet moved on, remains essentially in the same place, the same house, same geography, the same place. Why? And the second thing that I would draw from that is, he said it himself. Do you think it might be true that once something has come through, or is visible on both sides, depending on how you want to look at it, that in essence, a portal has opened, allowing not just the spirit of his mother-in-law, but more to come through? That's worth some thought. On our international line, you are on the air. Good morning to you.
Hi, this is Mark from Auckland, New Zealand.
Auckland, New Zealand. Yes, sir. Welcome to the program.
Yes, I have a bit of an unusual ghost story to tell.
All right.
I frequently have out-of-body experiences, and one time I managed to catch a glimpse of my own ghost.
What? What?
Yes.
Now, if anything would stop me from having OBEs, assuming I could have them at will, that would do it. You saw your own ghost.
Yes, well, people who frequently have out-of-body experiences will know that you can sometimes get stuck in your corporeal body, your physical body. This frequently happens to me, and this one time, a part of me separated while my vision remained in my body, my physical body, and I saw this watery.
Oh my! In other words, you saw your spiritual self in a visual way, with the vision from your own body leaving your body.
Yeah, I saw it walking across the room. Well, I saw myself walking across the room. It was like a third person perspective.
Did that stop you from doing that?
No, I've had more hair-raising experiences than that. That was an unusual one. That hasn't stopped me.
It would have stopped me cold. All right, my friend, thank you. That's from New Zealand. That would have stopped me cold. To have the physical vision remain in a somewhat active mind, and to see your spirit leave your own body, and to realize that your essentially dead, spiritless body is observing its own spirit leaving. Thank you. East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hello, where are you?
I'm in Austin.
Austin, Texas. All right.
This story is kind of secondhand because it's something my mother told me happened before I was born.
It's all right. What is your name?
Sarah.
Sarah. Okay, Sarah.
Okay. She was living in Salem, Massachusetts with my father. They'd gotten married recently.
Right.
And in the house they were living, I think it was probably an old house, these things started happening. First, the cats started acting weird. Like, they'd be running across the room and all of a sudden they'd stop like there was a wall in front of them.
Yes, I've seen cats do that many times. They see things we don't.
Yeah. And once or twice she said she found them in shut dresser drawers.
Cats?
Yes. They'd have gotten inside the drawer and it was shut behind them.
Yeah.
She was alone in the apartment. And once the bathroom door was stuck. And she wasn't sure why it was stuck. She kept trying to get it open. My father wasn't home, so she had to get a neighbor to help her open it. And it took him a lot of work to get it open. And when they got it open, it was like 20 degrees colder in the bathroom than it had been anywhere else in the house.
Really?
Yes. And then my father would start, he would say he felt a hand on the back of his neck, but my mother was across the room or in a different room and there was no one else in the house. And then the last thing that happened, my mom said this was the last thing that happened, and after that nothing ever happened. My father came in the room where she was, and he was like all white and shaking, and told her that he had been walking up the stairs, and he saw this woman walking down the stairs towards him, and that she was wearing like old-fashioned clothes. That was all they told me. I didn't get any more detail than that.
Yes.
She was walking towards him, and then when they passed each other on the stairs, he felt like totally cold all the way through, and then she vanished, and then they never saw anything else again.
I sure do appreciate the story.
Yes, I should want to hear it.
Now, you're right. Thank you. I wonder what it is about the presence of an entity that causes temperatures to drop. And by the way, I might add measurably drop. I have interviewed any number of ghost researchers, and it's about half and half. Some say they're unable to measure the temperature drop, but they can certainly feel it. The other half say they have measured up to, as this young lady said, up to 20 degrees and more of difference. Sometimes right down to freezing. She mentioned cats and brings to mind the following. Again from Canada. Canada must be a very haunted place. Where I live, we have woods by our house, about 7/10 of a kilometer by 6/10 of a kilometer in size. And in this woods is a man some time ago who hung himself, actually 70 years ago, when his wife had died at an early age. 70 years ago, the land that everyone is now living on was farmland. And ever since those woods have been left alone. The only thing about the man was he was a cat lover. He had about 4 cats. And I can tell you there is something about those woods that is pretty freaky now. Every now and then, even now, there is a gathering of cats in the woods. No lie, I've seen them. They just sit around, 10 to 20 of them. Tell you what I'll do. I'll try and get a picture of it next time it happens and send it to you. I believe the cats are gathering in this man's name. West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hello.
Aloha, Art. This is Mike calling from Kihei, Maui, Hawaii.
Hello, Mike. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. Actually, I told you this briefly a few years ago. My wife Bonnie and I had gone over to Kauai pre-Iniki, the year before Iniki hit.
Oh, the big terrible hurricane, yeah.
It was a nasty one. We stayed at an older, fairly flat resort called the Coco Palm. It was nice. We had driven around the day. We went back to the hotel, pretty tired, and we went to bed after listening to the little band downstairs. Sometime in the night, I woke up, I was on my back, in the bed, and something fairly large, kind of glowing, was at the foot of the bed.
Man.
It was human-shaped, and it scared the bejesus out of me, to the point where I was petrified and could not move.
Describe it more than that. Human shape. Yeah, sort of a mist, you mean, or try and do a little bit better.
Well, at least 7 feet tall. If it was a person, it probably would have weighed several hundred pounds.
Oh, so this is very large.
Like 250, 300 pounds.
All right.
The perception I got was that it was kind of glowing like a glow stick. You know those green glow sticks you crack at night?
Yes.
Okay, well, it scared me so bad, all I did was close my eyes. Whatever it is, it's going to go away. I'm closing my eyes. That's it. Woke up in the morning. My wife and I finished our time on Kauai. Went to Oahu. And driving from the airport over the Poly to the other side, I told her on the Poly, I said, you know what, Dave? Last night, there was something in our room. And she turned to me, and the chicken skin started. That's when you get the goosebumps.
So they call it in Hawaii chicken skin.
She freaked out with her big Hawaiian eyes and looked at me and said, I saw it too. And I said, well, what did you see? Apparently she must have seen a little more than I did, and or perceived more than I did.
Maybe she didn't close her eyes.
I sure did. My wife says that she saw a very large Hawaiian float in through the window and stand at the foot of our bed, and it was, to her, she said, it was very pissed off. It was
a pissed off Hawaiian.
A pissed off Hawaiian. Now, I'm white. My wife's almost pure Hawaiian. I'm wondering, is this a Hawaiian ghost looking down, seeing a local woman with a white man?
I hear you.
Angry.
I hear you.
That was very perturbing, and we both had chicken skin for quite some time that evening. One more recently, unfortunately, my wife's lovely father, who lives over in Wainea on the Big Island,
yes,
was diagnosed with a terminal cancer around May this year, and he decided that he would prefer not to fight it and would go with hospice care and prefer to live out his remaining time in the living room at home. And with a lot of the homes here in Hawaii, we have day beds in the living room.
No, I understand that. I think I would make the same choice.
So, Shem, that's his name, her dad, spent out his remaining time in the living room on a beautiful hospice bed provided. Mom lovingly cared for him, and it was wonderful because he had time, and all of us families could come by and say aloha. Well, we're staying there, and he has not yet passed away, and the only room left because of all of the ohana, or family over, is Mom and Dad's room. They really don't sleep in too much anyway, because they sleep in the living room. Anyway, Dad is still alive, but getting near the end. This has been within 3 days of him passing on. My wife and I go to bed about 11 o'clock at night in the parents' bed. sleeping on my stomach, and something gives me a finger jab poke through the mattress into my ribs. It felt like it came up about 2 inches.
Yeah.
It woke me up, scared the hell out of me, and I said, "Fine." She goes, "What? It was something poked me in the ribs." And I rolled over onto my back, and she goes, "Are you okay?" I go, "Yeah." I said, "What was that?" She goes, "I don't know." And then something, the pressure of someone sitting down on my leg. And I said,
On your leg?
On my leg. I said, and I'm getting chicken skin now, I'm freaking out remembering. I said, "Babe, it's sitting on my leg. What am I going to do?" She says, "It's okay. It's all right. It's probably just Dad, his spirit coming into the room saying, 'You're in our bed.'" I said, "Well, he's not dead yet." She says, "You know, that this is his house and he can move around when he wants."
Sure.
I said, "Babe, can I please sleep in another room? I can't handle this. It's too much." She said, "Okay." So we switched with her sister. And Dad passed on shortly after that. We have not yet, myself, she's returned to visit Mom twice. I'm a little leery about visiting.
Why do you think the state of Hawaii is such a haunted state?
I don't know.
It is, though. I've had guests on who have told story after story like the ones you just told. Hawaii is a very, very haunted set of islands. There's no question about it.
You and your wife.
John, while we're on the subject of mutilations, Linda Howe, who does this show with me on Sunday called Dreamland, concentrates a lot on animal mutilations, and I just got an article from somebody. It came in the Associated Press article, and with a local kind of angle to it, in the Albuquerque Journal dated Sunday, August 14th, so it's brand new. There are cattle mutilations going on like crazy right now in northern New Mexico, and they really are odd, John. High heat used, genitals and tongues and so forth and so on, removed, all that sort of thing going on, and it's going on massively now in northern New Mexico. Are the cattle mutilations related in any way to the human mutilations?
I don't know, but they do the same thing. They core out the rectum, they take the genitals, they carve the eyes out. They follow the same pattern. We had a very interesting incident happen here in Nevada. You'll remember in 1990 there was a big story about 128 sheep that were found dead in central Nevada.
Yes, I recall.
Well, the interesting thing is that area was sealed off from all reports and researchers, and no pictures were never released, and no independent inspection was done. And after the initial interest, there was only one story done by a reporter in Reno. This reporter never went near the horses or the site, but relied mainly on unsubstantiated reports from the authorities. He wrote that the horses were killed by rifle bullets fired from persons who were charged, but then later released for insufficient evidence.
Right.
And this reporter received the Pulitzer Prize for his report.
If you had to hazard a guess with regard to all these cattle mutilations, what do you think's being done?
I don't know. It has to do with genetic experimentation. Those particular parts of the body, I think they use it hormones, secretions, that kind of thing, for whatever it is.
Well, there are people who suggest that it's our own government, that our government is somehow doing it. But it wouldn't make sense to me that our government would feel a need, or would even have a need, to raid anybody's cattle farm.
Well, certainly if it was our own government, they would do it a little bit more discreetly. There's no question in my mind that we do some of that, but the major portion of it is done by someone else.
Well, you'd think the government could get cattle if they need cattle.
Certainly, they could have a farm, and they wouldn't leave the bodies lying around just to invite speculation.
All right. The explosion over Nevada that you talked about, then a recovery of a craft in New Mexico in 1962.
Yeah, I was just trying to find a copy of that, of the of the Las Vegas Sun had a front page story of this explosion that occurred. Well, it was seen all over Nevada, but apparently part of it crashed in Mesquite. And apparently that was one of the first test flights that our government made in a recovered extraterrestrial craft. And because of the disastrous outcome of it, there was no more testing until 1972. But apparently that was us trying to fly one of the extraterrestrial craft.
Okay, is that one of them that had crashed, or was one turned over to us in some way? Or
all I can tell you is it was acquired. Now, whether it crashed and was good enough working order to fly, or whether it was turned over to us as one of the ones that Linda Howe talks about at Hill Air Force Base in Utah. Everybody wakes up one morning and there's one just sitting on the ramp. The doors are open. It's just sitting there. And that was one of the cases where we had to quickly cover it up and take it from them. But it was just sitting there on the ramp. Now, who gave it to us? I don't know, but it's just there.
Boy, it's so hard to fill in the blanks sometimes. The Holloman incident in 1964, an agreement in the late 60s, the building of Dulce recovery near Fort Raleigh, Kansas. That was a busy year.
Yeah, that was the Holloman incident was documented by Sandler Productions. The film was released in 1973, and that was actually supposedly the first attempt.
This is the first thing I created myself. I want to share a real brief little story.
All right.
I got involved in the oil and gas investment business when I was, what was that? It must have been 19, maybe 21. I forget. My whole time perception is screwed up.
What haven't you done? That's because you fidget too much. What haven't you been doing in your life? It sounds like you've done a little bit of almost everything.
You wouldn't believe it, Art. I met Anthony Robbins. I gave him a fidget.
I'm sorry. Who's Anthony Robbins?
Anthony Robbins is a powerful motivator, guy does seminars and stuff. I gave him a fidget. I could go through a list of musicians that would blow your mind, Art Bell. Jerry Garcia, The Dead, David Wilcox, Corday Conner, Susie Johnson, Samples, Merle Saunders, George Thorogood, Papa Bonton, shook his hand, gave him a fidget. Some of these people got them directly from me, some got them through their promoters and their channels. Anytime I go to a concert, the act gets a fidget on me. And I'll tell you what, Art, I've never paid for a concert. The first concert I ever went to was free. I snuck into Elvis, and ever since then, I've been going to concerts for free. I just won't pay.
You don't think he's alive, do you?
I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. Here comes another fellow, probably heard it on the radio. He's wandering up to the payphone. A whole group of folks there. We got a scoutmaster here that wandered up.
Now that's good.
Yeah,
a scoutmaster is good.
Absolutely, he's right here.
Put him on. Put him on. Put him on. I don't believe all this.
Hi, my name is Todd, Art.
Hello, Todd.
And I can't believe this. I do listen to you late
a scoutmaster?
Oh, because I'm still wearing my uniform. I was at a Boy Scout meeting tonight, and I was on my way home. I drove in my driveway, and I was listening to him, and the fidget man came back on. I listened to him on Tuesday night.
Right, and so you were listening on the radio, you got in your car and you drove down there?
And I basically, Santa Cruz isn't that big. I hit a couple of stores, and all of a sudden I found him.
You swear Scout's honor.
Scout's honor. First law of Boy Scout law is that Scout is trustworthy. I'm serious. I mean, I could give you the phone number of the Scout office if you wanted.
Somehow I feel like Rod Serling ought to be coming on next, you know? I mean, here's a guy at it's a telephone booth or a couple of telephones on the side of the store, right?
There is, yeah, we're in front of, I think it's Donato's. It's 2 phone booths here, and right downtown Santa Cruz. There you go. And his car. Okay, the lights are turned out. There's 4 cars here in the parking lot. And I can't believe I found him. As soon as I walked up, he gave me a fidget.
He did?
Incredible gentleman.
What's your take on that simple little fidget?
You know what? I've been playing with it ever since I got here. I love it. You know, and you know why?
Why?
Because I'm kind of a nervous kind of guy. You know, one of those type A personalities.
Yeah, that's
I'm always got to go do something. Okay? And I never get enough sleep. And it's like, I can guarantee you I'm going to have this in my pocket forever. You know, what else can I say? It's such a simple little device.
I don't know. I'm almost speechless myself. Because all of this is from the first phone call I got from him to the discussion of fidgets, to the arrival of fidgets, to his being able to get through tonight, first time out of a shoot like that, to people like you coming by now, it's all a little much for me.
I didn't hear it on Friday. I did hear about it Tuesday night. He described how to make one. I said, I got to make one of those. And then I didn't know he was in Santa Cruz. And when he came on tonight, I'm going, oh, this is insane. I've got to see if I can find him. I didn't even get out of the car. I mean, it's like, you know, I normally, take my uniform off. You know, I feel like the Scouts. I don't run around here with the Scouts, you know.
Why would you have a Scout uniform on at 1 o'clock in the morning?
Well, I was going to this meeting, and we got done with the meeting. We always talk late after the meeting, you know, how Scouters will, it's an adult Scout meeting, a plan for you.
Oh, I see. All right. Well, listen, we're at the top of the hour, so hand the phone back to the fidget guy.
I certainly will.
And I really appreciate your coming on. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
All right.
Too weird. You're listening to Art Bell, Summer in Time on Premier Radio Networks. Tonight, an encore presentation of Coast to Coast AM from August 14, 1997.
Well, good morning. It was destined, I believe, that I would do weird things in radio, and weird things would happen to me in radio. And I'll try and summarize this and where we are and where we aren't with fidgets. I'll try in a minute. Too weird.
The Bermuda Triangle isn't a portal into another dimension or a physical hotbed of magnetic anomalies. Visibility technology, are we any closer to scientifically making it possible to disappear? And shapeshifters, can people really change their bodies in the physical plane? If I'm speaking your language, get on board for the June issue of the After Dark magazine, the official four-color magazine edited just for Coast to Coast AM listeners, with regular features such as Dr. Sky, oddities, and a rundown of last month's guests and websites on the back page. And there's always an editorial written by me. Read my tribute to my father. The lines are open. 1-888-727-5505. That's 1-888-727-5505. It's $39.95 for 12 monthly issues. Or subscribe online at coasttocoastam.com.
You never know what you'll hear on Coast to Coast AM with George Norris.
I get calls every day.
Is there a way to phrase where you say you are from? Is it a fourth dimension, fifth dimension?
Basically, we've explored right now about 50 different offshoots of the planet Earth.
Holy smokes, you mean different dimensional renderings of Earth?
Basically, from our dimension, how time is split differently. There's a lot of of course, there's a couple of splits where the United States lost the Cold War. We, of course, there's several where we lost the Cold War. There's one where basically Nazi Germany won.
Nazi Germany won?
World War II.
World War II. Boy, what a hellish place that must be.
Yes, it is. It's extremely bad. We basically, well, I talked to some of the people, they popped in and they saw swat stickers in Richmond and that's all.
Now, our theoretical physicists are presently in this dimension beginning to realize there are other dimensions. Some of our best are saying that, but they're speculating 10, some more, and you're saying as many as 50.
50 that we explored. There are a lot more. We didn't find, basically, we found part of this technology in Europa, which is, it has an intelligent race. I don't know if it has it. We haven't really got the point.
We're very curious about Europa in this dimension, thinking it might have some form of life, but probably fairly primitive.
Well, this is, I don't know quite how to explain it. This dimension's probably, it's fairly dangerous to go to.
The one we're in, you're talking about the one?
The one that we're in currently.
Stop with the senator stuff already.
Okay, all right.
I'm not a senator in this dimension, and I don't much have respect for a lot of them either.
Okay, well then I'll apologize.
So, in fact, it worries me to even think that I might be one of them.
Okay.
But Arizona would be a good state.
It's a very nice state.
Anyway, this is no kidding on this dangerous dimension stuff. I mean, I'm reading this environmental news, and the ozone layer is getting gigantic to the point where they say it's going to be affecting us up north here the way Australia is affected. The ocean is warming. The storms are getting worse. Things are going to hell in a handbasket, really.
Well, we're concerned about that, and we're also concerned about, I guess, how conspiratorial the United States government is.
Oh, we are so conspiratorial. Even my listeners, believe me, my listeners are so conspiratorial. Yes, I am too. But why are you here?
Basically, like I said, I'm here to scout out different areas to determine whether or not to actually present ourselves to governments. That's one of the things I do.
Do you think that's a good idea, or do you think that's a dangerous, not such a good idea?
It's a very dangerous idea. To basically say that I'm from the Confederate States of America.
That's going to get me in trouble right away.
It's going to get me in trouble. We did settle the slavery issue when Robert E. Lee was president.
So you're saying then that the Confederate States did not maintain slavery,
no,
perhaps a longer period of time?
It basically it went away. We had what was called a LaFouche plan, which slaves were able to buy their freedom, and they had a choice of going back to Liberia or Spain. And if they stayed there, they had to basically move out of the state that they were originally enslaved in. And at that time, we were annexed with Mexico, and there was a lot of land down there.
So, boy, in your dimension, we have a lot more land. I mean, we swallowed Canada in one quick bite, and then a lot of Mexico as well, huh?
Well, the Confederate States took Mexico. We took Mexico, and then what you call the United States took Canada.
So you all were rebels with a real cause.
Yes, we were. I guess now.
Bunch of land grabbers is what you are.
Well, that was quite a while ago.
I know. That's what they say here too. So, what is the future for this dimension? Is it a rosy one or
I don't know.
kind of a poopy one?
I guess the thing that we're most surprised about, since we went to a lot of dimensions with this level of technology, is the lack of space travel that you have done. I've seen other areas with the same tech level or the same technology that you have, and they already have a colony on the moon. They've already landed people on Mars. They're trying to asteroids.
Listen here, I'm pressed by the clock. I've got to take a break. You want to hold on? You're really an interesting person.
Yes, I can hold on for just a little bit longer.
Just a little longer?
Probably maybe 10 more minutes. I really don't. It's a conspiracy. Spiritual. I really don't like this.
All right. Give me 10 minutes. Yeah. Stand by. In this dimension. I'm Art Bell, and this is Coast to Coast AM. Don't touch that dial.
Wildcard line is open at 1-775-727-1295. And to call out on the toll-free international line, call your AT&T operator and have them dial 800-893-0903. This is Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell from the Kingdom of Nine.
You know, at the top of the hour, we have a PhD-type professor coming on to talk about time travel. Real time travel is such a romantic notion for me. To our dimensional traveler in a moment. All right, I'm only accepting calls from time or dimensional travelers, and I'm not sure there's a really big difference. And by the way, thank you for waiting, caller. Is there a big difference? I mean, isn't dimensional travel a type of time travel?
Not really. As far as our scientists say, no, not really. What happens is, I guess time is same. When I go back to my dimension, it's the same time as it is.
So time is linear in each different dimension.
Yes, as far as we know. I guess one thing.
So that means Art Bell, the talk show host, and Art Bell, the senator, do they live to be different ages?
Yes, they can. I mean, I know of you, at least in one other dimension, where you host you're not going to believe it, you host a talk show on the moon. You are basically broadcast from the moon.
From the moon.
From the moon.
I would entertain that option if it were given to me. Listen, there's somebody who would like to ask you a quick question. On my international line, where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is Larry. I'm calling from Sudbury, Ontario, 300 miles north of Toronto.
Actually, territory that isn't even actually Canada.
That's right.
To my
Well, there is an Ontario. It's just another flag in the United States. All right. Call it. It's Robert, is it? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I have a question. What are the cars like there? Are there Chevys, Fords? They drive differently? Same kind of transmission? From the names of the cars?
Really good questions, yeah.
Basically, we have what's called in Atlanta, which is our equivalent of Detroit, is what's called Trafalgar iron bars, and they have a variety of different models and makes.
So in other words, that is your Detroit.
Yeah, Atlanta is basically our Detroit. Basically, I guess what would be called a lot of. I'm gonna be polite. I guess a lot of. We also prefer to call Negroes blacks, right? I want to make sure blacks.
Blacks in this time, yes, dimension would be proper.
Okay, would be blacks. Okay, blacks moved up into, I guess, the Iowa area. And there's a town, very large town there called New Jerusalem, which is the
New Jerusalem in Iowa?
United States.
Now, he asked about cars. Can you describe any automobiles?
Pretty much they would be the same. Ours mostly run on electric. We don't have a lot of diesel.
Figures.
We in the South prefer big muscle cars.
How can you have a muscle electric car? I guess you could have electricity.
Do you have gasoline at all?
Yeah. Do you? What?
Hello?
We lost him. We lost him. He's gone. He's gone. We lost him. He said, out of gas. He said he only has 10 minutes, and I guess
that's true.
His 10 minutes are up.
But I love questions like that, Art.
Well, so Detroit is virtually in Atlanta, huh?
Yeah, interesting. I also wanted to ask him about trains and aircraft.
How would you guys feel being consolidated as U.S., never having been?
Well, if it was the natural evolution of history, I mean, it would be fine. You know what I mean? As long as you don't force the issue. I mean, if that's the way that it happened, well, that's the way that it happened. At the same time, Canada and the United States are both very different.
So you wouldn't have that medical
very much
system.
the same.
You wouldn't have that medical system out there. You wouldn't have. But you would have.
Well, that medical system is on shaky legs right now.
Yeah, I've heard that. All right. Well, listen. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And, you take care. Well, this is next. First time caller line. You are on the air. Hello.
Hello, Art.
Yes.
Art, how are you?
I'm quite well. How about yourself?
Well, I'm doing quite well, thank you. Listen, it's been a long time. I've been listening to you for years.
For years now, huh?
Yeah, yes, I have.
Are you a time traveler?
Well, yeah, something happened to me because of your show.
What?
Well, first of all, it goes back to 1995. I'm located up here on the Russian River in Santa Rosa on KSRO country, and we were flooded. Our house was like basically cut in half. I was forced into work many days in a row. I'm a truck driver. I've listened to you for years, over the night, like you have mentioned.
Yes. The time travel part.
Well, the time travel part was like this. I was working so many days that I caught one of your shows, and I listened to Malachi Martin.
Yes.
And he told me or to most of your audience, how to pray, how to accept acceptance. And something happened, man.
What?
I'm tired. I'm going I'm running illegal. I'm going like 23, 24 days in a row.
I hear a lot of truckers do that.
Yeah, but
And so you had an epiphany on the road.
No, man. Something happened, and suddenly I got touched. I felt like I got hit by like a golden wand or whatever that hit me on the top of my head one
You
night.
sure that you just like just bang your head on as you're getting out of the truck or something?
No, I made sure that that's not what happened. If anything, it woke me up into a lot more than what I knew in the past, and I started to see into the future. And what I started to see into the future was this. I didn't see so much the doom and gloom. What I started to see was the things that the natural changes. We're going through a tremendous rate of change right now, and it includes all of us. I saw in a flash, in an instant, what I saw was a better place to be.
How far ahead is that? Because right now the signs, I mean, the canaries are dropping like flies here.
Yeah, I realize the canaries are dropping like flies. I realize that we got global warming and there's ships to ice, like, melting and breaking.
Right, so then when does it get better?
The better part is around the corner, and I would say maybe in 10 years. What I saw was something that flashed.
So you didn't actually, then you didn't really travel time. You saw ahead in time is what you did.
I'm not exactly sure how you would say that. All I know is that something touched me.
Were you actually, okay, let's put it this way. Were you actually, seemingly, actually there?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, it's good to hear that,
no, hold on a second. I know what you're going to say, Art. I know what you're going to say. Hold on, man. No, I mean, this is something that happened in an instant.
Well, what happened in a moment? No, I understand that. But look, there would be critics who would say, you said you were driving illegal, you were doing 1 million hours, you shouldn't have done it. You had a brain spasm.
No, it wasn't a brain spasm.
A trucker's brain spasm.
Wow.
How do you know? Because that would be the criticism, especially with what you said.
Well, I'll tell you exactly how I know. First of all, it was a warm feeling. It was a feeling of acceptance, and it kind of glowed the whole cab of inside my truck after so many years of not really believing, so to speak, being a hard, kind of tough guy. And all of a sudden, realizing and seeing something that was so cool. I said, you know what? There is something else out there, and it's powerful. And you know what? I got an immediate calm about me. And for a moment, in a blink of an eye, in a blink of your eye, what I saw was the state of the future. And
what you saw was a rosy future. All right, I've got it. So, trucking into the future. I guess we'll call that. Trucking. I can't rule out the possibility that you like this guy as you got out of the truck. Or that his cab warmed up when he sort of fell off the cliff mentally after driving for so many hours. You've got to allow that at least as a possibility. East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Good morning.
Yeah, hi, Art.
Hello.
I've been doing some dimensional traveling.
Yourself, huh? So again, well, okay, then let me ask you like I did the first caller, who apparently had a prepaid phone card that ran out. Is time linear in every dimension, as he suggested? It is. And from what is the dimension like that you are from?
It's very similar. And that's one problem that they had there, was when I was sent, they gave me this special card that I was supposed to, when I come back.
You were sent?
Huh?
You were sent?
Yeah. And when I was supposed to come back, I was supposed to check it, make sure I was in the right dimension.
Yes.
And it didn't match.
Oh, right. So in other words, you're saying you were tossed here by mistake.
Well, we found out that there's so many multiple dimensions, it's almost impossible to get back to your own. You can get back to a similar one.
But getting back to precisely where you were is almost not possible, so it's like you're stuck here then.
Very difficult.
Well, if this one is kind of like the one you came from, or with very few, what are the differences? Can you describe any differences? They have dogs there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Houses?
Yeah.
Detroit, cars?
Right.
Ozone depletion, ocean warming, all the problems we've got?
Basically, yeah.
Any difference at all?
Well, there'd be differences like that one guy, you'd be like the senator, or, different senators, different congressmen at different times. Little things. Basically, even if we lost the First World War, in some dimensions it end up almost the same. There's different points of history that just absolutely have to happen.
Well, what about Canada and Mexico? And I take it there is a Canada, there is Mexico. Okay.
There was one that I went to where Martin Luther King gets into it. Malcolm X didn't.
These would be very, very different then.
Right. So the civil rights movement didn't happen.
happen, then what would the state of blacks be in your dimension versus this one?
Well, in that one, they were still segregated out, you know, whites-only areas and malls, you know.
Well, that stinks. So you're in a really, you should count your lucky stars and you're in a better place.
Right.
Huh.
Yeah, it's that bad for me.
Are you bummed out that you're stuck here?
No. It's okay.
Do you frequently tell people what you're telling me now? And, no? That's probably a good idea. They wouldn't sell a lot of money to you. Well, listen, I certainly appreciate you calling me. And you have a good night, sir. West of the Rockies? Here. Do this again. West of the Rockies, are you there? Good. You're on the air.
This is Bob in California.
Hello, Bob.
I met myself when I was 8 years old. I met myself.
Now, you see, I've heard you can't do that, but you're saying you can.
I met myself from the future. It was really, really weird. When I was 8 years old in grammar school, I'd like play alone during the recess period.
Right.
Like